My name is Li Wei. One moment I was at my bee farm. Everything normal, bees buzzing, birds singing. Then, without warning, everything changed. The sky went dark, the ground turned dry and cracked, and the air felt wrong. All my beehives were gone except one. I pulled out my phone, and nothing looked right. All my apps were gone. No signal. Instead, there were 8 strange, dark icons, and the screen said, Barren Wasteland, where the time used to be. I've read enough fantasy novels to know what happened. I'd been pulled into another world. For a second, I almost laughed. At least my bank debts were gone. But then I thought about her. The woman who gave me all her savings when I went broke, with a little smiley face drawn on the note. I'd never see her again. I pushed the pain down. I had to focus on staying alive. I checked the apps. One was like a chat room, 100,000 people, but nobody talking. Another showed my stats: health, hunger, thirst, sanity. My only talent was beekeeper. I could bond with a queen bee and control her hive. That's it. No special powers. No system voice guiding me. Every app said the same thing: place a shelter first. But this open wasteland was a terrible spot for that, so I held off. Then I heard a small, sad voice in my head. It was my queen bee, calling me my king. She told me the bees were scared. I understood. We could talk mind to mind now. The problem was clear. Bees need flowers. There were no flowers here. We'd starve if we stayed. So I picked up the heavy hive and started walking towards some trees that looked a little less dead. It was a gamble, but gambling when things look hopeless is what I've always done. Then my phone chimed. The screen lit up, dark red. Someone, or something, was reaching out to me. I stared at my phone. A message said my relative, Chen Yun, was inviting me to explore the eternal realm together. Chen Yun, that's my girlfriend. I didn't think twice. I pressed yes. The world spun and blurred. When I opened my eyes, everything was different. There was warm wind, green grass, and trees in the distance. It was so much better than the wasteland I'd been stuck in. Then I saw her, just a few meters away, wearing her gray tracksuit, her competition bow in hand. When she turned around and saw me, she dropped her bow, ran over, and threw her arms around me. She didn't say anything, but I felt her tears soaking through my shirt. I patted her back and told her it was okay. She pulled away fast, wiped her face, and pretended nothing happened. Just got sand in my eyes, she said. That's so like her. I checked her stats. Her overall strength was 23, way higher than my 5. She had a rare purple talent that let her summon someone close to her into this world, but it cost her 50 points of mental energy permanently. She'd used it without hesitating, just to bring me here. Her bow came with her too, a special weapon that makes energy arrows on its own. We shared what we knew. Her area was called Greenfield Grove, much nicer than my barren wasteland. We were in different chat groups, but the setup was the same. We agreed on the obvious next step: find a spot to build a shelter. She pointed toward the forest, and we started walking. I carried the heavy beehive the whole way. My arms were burning, and I was drenched in sweat, but I didn't complain. She slowed down for me without saying a word. When we finally reached the forest, it was cool and dark. We looked around but couldn't find water or high ground. Nothing useful. Then I spotted something strange. A huge tree standing alone in a clearing. Its bark was almost black, and about halfway up, the surface looked like a face frozen in pain. Creepy, but something told me it was important. I had an idea. The rules said to place the shelter. They didn't say it had to be on the ground. What if we placed it inside the tree? Chen Yun didn't hesitate. She walked up and confirmed the placement. The tree started shaking hard. The trunk swelled and creaked like something alive was stretching inside it. The bark twisted and shifted, and right where Chen Yun had been standing, the outline of a door formed. The painful face on the trunk seemed to relax, then slowly faded away. We had our shelter. The tree had turned into our shelter, a round wooden room about 20 square meters, with rough walls and a big pillar in the center. It wasn't much, but the moment I stepped inside, my mind felt clearer and my body lighter. The shelter had a special trait. It restored sanity and stamina just by being inside. Chen Yun opened the shelter app and shared full permissions with me without even asking. No explanation, no big moment. She just did it and went back to checking her bow. I accepted without saying thank you. We didn't need words for that kind of thing. With the shelter placed, All the apps on my phone finally unlocked. I found two building options, a simple fire pit and a simple workbench. Both needed basic materials like wood and stone. The fire pit would light itself once built, which was a relief. I'd been worried about how to start a fire. I went to the beehive and asked the queen to send out scouts. About 5,000 bees flew out into the forest. They'd find nectar sources and dangers for us. Not perfect, since a single bee can only tell food from threat, but way better than stumbling around blind. Then Chen Yun called me over to the storage box in the corner. It looked small but was deep inside. We found a stone axe, a stone pickaxe, 3 breadfruits, and 3 coconut fruits. Finally, food. We sat on the ground, leaning against the box, and ate. The breadfruit had soft white flesh inside, like warm bread. The coconut water was cool and sweet. After all that walking and stress, it tasted amazing. We agreed to eat only half a fruit each and save the rest. We checked out more features on our phones. There was a marketplace where survivors could trade items. I also discovered a storage space with 15 slots. If I'd known about that sooner, I wouldn't have carried the beehive by hand the whole way. The map was mostly dark, showing only the path we'd walked. I told Chen Yun the plan. Build the fire pit first, then start gathering wood and stone. We needed to get set up before nightfall. Then she noticed something. People were finally talking in the chat groups. I checked mine too. We'd been so focused on surviving that we hadn't even heard the notifications. I opened the chat group and scrolled through the messages. 100,000 people, and most were panicking. One guy brought his electric hot pot with him. People were searching for family members. Someone was even trying to flirt. It was chaos. But one message stood out. A man named Yang Tong, a former military commander, posted a clear survival guide. Stay calm, get water and food, light a fire before dark, explore safely, and stick together. He spent 2 energy points just to help strangers. I respected that. The shelters people built were all different: wooden huts, caves, underground holes. Most got basic white quality. Ours was blue, which seemed better than average. Someone posted a photo of a tree full of red fruit they'd found right outside their door. That got us motivated. I checked in with my queen bee. The scouts were coming back. They'd found that creatures were active to the north, within about 3 kilometers. Chen Yun grabbed her bow and quiver, and I took the stone axe. We headed out. We went to the edge of the forest where there was more light. I picked a medium-sized tree and started chopping. It was harder than I expected. My first swing barely left a mark. After about 15 minutes of hacking, the tree finally fell. My phone scanned it, and the wood went straight into my inventory. 1 unit of Tier 1 wood. That storage system was something else, turning a whole tree into a little icon on my screen. While I chopped, Chen Yun searched for stones and found a tough grass called fibergrass that could be used for rope, but we needed proper tools to harvest it. Then she heard rustling in the grass. She crouched, pulled an energy arrow, aimed, and let it fly. Perfect shot, a fat gray rabbit, dead instantly. The arrow vanished after hitting its target. I told her nice shot. She lifted her chin and said, of course, looking proud. We also spotted a raven. Its description said it could be tamed to scout for us. Something to think about for later. We stored the rabbit and sat under a tree to rest. The sun was warm, the grass smelled good. Chen Yun's head leaned against my shoulder. For just a moment, things felt almost peaceful. A worker bee landed on my shoulder for a moment, its tiny legs tickling my collar. Even in this strange world, having my bees around felt comforting. Chen Yun leaned over and kissed my cheek. For a brief second, everything felt okay. I went back to chopping trees. My arms burned and my stamina dropped to around 80, but I kept going. I needed to get stronger if I wanted to survive here. Then Chen Yun called me over, excited. She'd found a berry bush hidden in the tall grass. Bright red berries that were sweet and refreshing. We sat in the grass and shared them, popping them into our mouths one by one. While we ate, a bee flew up, buzzing urgently around my head. Through our mental link, I could tell it wanted to show us something. We followed it through the grass to a spot where an old wooden box was buried. A treasure chest. It felt strange, like something out of a game. Inside we found 2 blueprints for a chair and a bed, plus a wooden stick that worked as a weapon. Nothing amazing, but useful. We spent the rest of the afternoon gathering resources. Collecting stone took forever. You had to pick up lots of small pieces before they counted as 1 unit. Chen Yun and I took turns chopping trees until we had a decent pile of wood. Then things changed. As the sun got lower, the forest went dead quiet. A cold, creepy feeling crept over us, like something was watching from the shadows. I checked my phone and saw my sanity was draining, even though night hadn't fully come yet. We looked at each other and both knew we had to go. Now, on the way back, Chen Yun spotted a dark shape sliding behind a tree. I saw it too, just for a second. I tried scanning it with my phone, but it left no trace. My blood went cold. We practically ran home. Chen Yun grabbed another rabbit on the way, pure reflex. When we finally reached our tree shelter and shut the door behind us, I leaned against the wall and just breathed. The calming air inside slowly eased the fear. My sanity had dropped to 129 out of 200 just from being outside near dusk. Chen Yun was worse, down to 99, and she said her head felt heavy below that number. It was clear now. Night in this world was dangerous, and not just because of creatures. The darkness itself drained your mind. We needed to build that fire pit right away. The fire wasn't just for cooking. It was our defense against whatever came with the dark. We built the fire pit near the center of the room. The stones stacked themselves into a circle, and the wood caught fire on its own. The moment the flames rose, all that dread from outside just melted away. I shut the door tight and felt safe for the first time since arriving here. I moved the beehive to a corner. The bees were all back inside, quiet and still. On the other side of the room, the workbench was building itself, invisible energy piecing boards together. It would take 2 more hours. Chen Yun took the 2 rabbits we'd caught and started cleaning them with the stone axe. It was messy and slow, but she got it done. We saved the organs to bury outside later. Maybe they'd work as fertilizer for our living treehouse. She skewered 1 rabbit on a branch and set it by the fire to roast. While she cooked, I checked my phone. The number in our chat group had dropped from nearly full to 99,121. I did the math. Almost 900 people were gone, just since nightfall. The chat was pure panic. People screaming for help, hearing scratching on their walls, things banging on their doors in the dark. One man was crying that he hadn't gathered enough stones to build a fire pit. He was sitting in total darkness, listening to something breathe outside his shelter. Then Yangting posted again. He shared real survival rules this time. Shadow creatures come out in the dark and attack shelters. Fire drives them away. Fear and panic drain your mental energy faster, and when it drops too low, the creatures target you more. If you can't stay calm, try to sleep. Deep sleep stops them from noticing you. And if your shelter's durability hits 0, it's gone. I wondered how he figured all this out so fast. Did people die to learn these lessons? Or did he have some other source? Chen Yun and I talked it over. His information matched what we'd felt at dusk, that creeping fear, the sanity draining. It made sense, and he had no reason to lie. We decided Chen Yun would share the key points in her chat group. She typed a short summary and sent it, spending a bit of her energy. People thanked her right away. Some were desperate, running out of firewood, terrified by the sounds outside. She didn't reply. Energy was too precious to waste on extra words. She turned off her phone and looked at the rabbit over the fire. The fat was sizzling, and the smell filled our little treehouse. "It's ready to eat," she said. We tore into the rabbit meat by the fire. It was tough and bland, but warm. We split a breadfruit and washed it down with coconut water. We'd planned to save food, but we were too hungry to stop. While we ate, I scrolled through the marketplace on my phone. It was already busy, people trading from inside their shelters. Most wanted weapons, armor, or medicine. Stone was in high demand too, since everyone needed it for fire pits after hearing Yangtung's warning. I spotted a birdcage blueprint that caught my eye. Earlier we'd seen ravens that could be tamed as scouts, so a cage could be valuable. But we didn't have anything good enough to trade for it yet. There was also a guy selling a stone dagger, begging for medicine. He was hurt bad. Before I could even think about it, his listing vanished. Someone else grabbed it. Chen Yun and I looked at each other. In this world, getting injured could mean death. Then I found someone selling wooden shields. Chen Yun said we should trade our extra rabbit for one. Safety first. I agreed. The trade cost an extra energy point because the seller was far away, but it was worth it. The shield felt solid, wood on the outside, tough vines woven on the inside. I held up the shield in one hand and my stick in the other. "My lady, does your knight meet your standards?" Chen Yun actually laughed. We compared the two chat groups' marketplaces. Mine had more weapons and strange blueprints. Hers had mostly furniture and food. We figured different areas probably had different resources. Harsh places like my old wasteland might have combat items, while green forests like ours had more food. While Chen Yun started dozing off by the fire, I grabbed the stone axe and carved some rough wooden bowls and chopsticks from branches. She laughed at how ugly they were. I told her they'd hold water, and that's what mattered. She fell asleep on the floor. I stayed up waiting for the workbench to finish building itself. When it was done, I checked the crafting menu. Axes, pickaxes, shovels, torches, all basic stuff. Most needed stone, which we were short on. I made 3 torches from branches and dry leaves. They'd burn for a couple hours each. Good enough for now. I thought about building the wooden bed from our blueprint, but the room was already small. Sleeping on a board wouldn't be much better than the floor anyway. I lay down next to Chen Yun and put my arm around her. Sleep hit me like a wave. The fire dimmed to a soft glow. Outside, strange shadows drifted through the darkness, but they didn't seem to notice our treehouse. Chen Yun woke up before me and restarted the fire. The smell of reheated rabbit meat pulled me out of sleep. After a full night's rest, my body felt surprisingly good. The treehouse's healing effect was real. My arms should have been wrecked from yesterday's work, but they were barely sore. I checked in with the queen bee. She was excited. About 2,000 new bees would hatch today. I told her to expand the search area and look for treasure chests or anything unusual. The bees could scout up to 10 kilometers. That was a huge advantage. My combat power had jumped to 23 with my new shield and stick. I bragged to Chen Yun about catching up to her, but she showed me her screen. She was already at 25. Her body was naturally getting stronger. I had some catching up to do. We headed south into the deep forest. The trees grew massive the further we went, trunks so wide it would take several people to wrap around them. The ground was a mess of roots and fallen logs. We found mushrooms, but they were all poisonous. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled. We spotted some blackbirds, rooks, sitting in a tree with a nest. They could be useful if tamed, but we'd need a cage first. Then we found a huge patch of tough vines, perfect for weaving. I started chopping them down and collected dozens of units. That's when things went wrong. The noise spooked the birds, and I got a bad feeling. Something was coming. 4 wolves burst out of the trees and surrounded us. Gray-brown fur that blended with the forest. Each one had a combat power of 20. Chen Yun shot first. Her arrow dropped the nearest wolf instantly. Then the biggest one lunged at me. I shoved my shield forward and caught its claws. The impact numbed my whole arm. Another wolf tried to circle around to my neck, but Chen Yun's second arrow hit it right in the eye. I swung my stick at the first wolf's side and heard bones crack. A 4th wolf went for Chen Yun while she was still aiming. I charged in and slammed it with my shield. Her 3rd arrow caught it in the leg. I finished it off with a few more hits. 4 wolves down. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it had burst. We were scratched up but alive. If I'd been alone, I'd be dead. We drained the wolves' blood into my ugly wooden bowl, about 7 gene of it. Disgusting, but blood is protein and salt. We stored the 4 bodies in our inventory. We pushed deeper, looking for water or stone. But then we found massive paw prints in the mud and fresh droppings the size of a human head. Whatever left those was way beyond what we could handle. I made the call to turn back. We got home with about 8 hours of daylight left. No water source, no stones, but we had vines, wolf meat, blood, and hard-earned combat experience. The forest was generous and deadly at the same time. When I got back inside and set down my shield, the tension finally left my body. The cuts and sore muscles hit me all at once, but the worst part was the thirst. We only had 1 coconut water left. I went to the beehive and connected with the queen bee. She had good news. The scouts found a spot to the northeast full of flowers, way more than anywhere else. She was excited about making honey there. Even better, they'd found another treasure chest to the northwest, under a dead tree. I told her we'd check it out in the afternoon. Chen Yun looked tired too. Her lips were dry and cracked. She took the wolf blood we'd collected, cut the clotted mass into slices, and roasted them on a flat stone over the fire. It came out crispy on the outside with a strong, salty, gamey taste. Not great, but it had water, salt, and protein, exactly what we needed. While she started butchering the wolf carcasses, I sat on the floor, trying to weave a bird trap from the vines we'd gathered. I'd seen how to do it on short videos back home. The wolves turned out to be mostly skin and bones, barely any fat. Even the animals here were struggling to survive. Chen Yun worked carefully with a stone knife, separating the hides, cutting the legs at the joints, splitting ribs from spine. She cooked the heart, liver, and kidneys over the fire and stored the smelly organs we couldn't use. We talked about buying water from the marketplace, but the prices were insane. People wanted weapons or huge piles of materials just for a little water. I laughed at the irony. In all the survival novels I used to read, the hero sold water to get rich. Here, I could barely afford to buy any. I tried trading some wolf leg meat for that birdcage blueprint I'd seen yesterday. No idea if anyone would accept meat instead of weapons, but we had to try. After a lot of struggling with the vines, I made a rough basket. Ugly, lopsided, gaps everywhere, but it held together. Chen Yun looked at it and asked if it could actually catch birds. I said probably. She smiled and handed me some shredded meat for bait. I went outside, set the basket upside down in a clearing, propped one side up with thin sticks, and tied the bait underneath. If a bird went for the meat, the sticks would fall and the basket would trap it. Simple idea, anyway. Back inside, Chen Yun was hanging strips of wolf meat on a vine rack above the fire to smoke into jerky. It wouldn't taste great, but it might last us a few more days. The bees led us to the treasure chest the queen had found, a wooden box hidden at the base of a dead tree. Inside were two things that made my heart jump: a farmland blueprint and half a kilogram of green-quality mineral salt. The salt was pure white and sparkled in the light. In a world where we'd been eating bland, gamey meat, salt felt like gold. The farmland blueprint needed fertilizer, wood, branches, and empty territory. I couldn't build it yet. The shelter needed upgrading first, and that meant 100 units of wood. So we got to work chopping trees. Swing after swing, sweat dripping, wood chips flying. By afternoon, we'd gathered 25 more logs, some branches, leaves, and stones. On the way back, Chen Yun stopped me. My ugly vine basket was flat on the ground. Something was inside, flapping and tapping. I lifted the edge and grabbed a crow. Then we checked the second trap. Another crow. 2 traps, 2 birds. Either I was lucky or these birds had never seen a trap before. I carried both crows home, feathers sticking to my head, looking ridiculous. I tied their feet to the workbench with vine and let them calm down. We were dangerously thirsty. Our last coconut water went down in seconds. Tomorrow, finding water was no longer optional. It was life or death. Chen Yun cooked up the wolf organs over the fire and sprinkled on some of our new salt. The difference was unbelievable. The kidneys, hearts, and liver went from barely edible to actually delicious. The salt killed the gamey smell and brought out real flavor. We ate everything. All the organs, all the blood skewers. For the first time since arriving, a meal actually felt satisfying. Then I checked my phone. My trade offer for the birdcage blueprint was still sitting there, no response. But just as I was about to give up, the seller, a guy named Zhang Han, sent me a friend request. We haggled through private chat. He thought 4 gene of wolf meat wasn't enough for his blueprint. I told him he had no birds to use it with, and meat was real food he could eat right now. Chen Yun shook her head when I was about to give in and offer more. So I held firm. He agreed. The trade went through, 4 gene of wolf meat for 1 birdcage blueprint. I'd made a connection too. Zhang Han seemed like someone worth staying in touch with. I leaned back against the storage box. Salt, meat, 2 crows, a birdcage blueprint, a farmland map. Things were starting to come together. But tomorrow's problem was clear. We had to find water, or none of the rest would matter. The workbench finished the first birdcage overnight. It was small and neat. Hard to believe 3 units of wood went into it. I put one of the crows inside and checked its stats. The cage had a taming feature. Feed the bird twice a day for 2 days, and it becomes obedient. After that, it could scout the area and report back twice daily. That was incredibly useful. Chen Yun wanted to sell them right away, but I told her to wait until dark, when everyone was stuck in their shelters with nothing to do but browse the marketplace. More eyes meant better offers. I listed 2 trades. 1 cage for 20 units of stone, and 1 for 5 units of living wood. The first sold instantly. The second got flooded with offers. My friend requests went crazy. Most people offered basic weapons or scattered materials, nothing worth the cage. Then a blue quality offer appeared, a broken water element fragment, from a tough-looking guy named Luo Yao. Blue quality for a white cage seemed like a great deal, but I really needed living wood. I messaged him and asked if he could throw in some water. He agreed without hesitation, added 20 gene of creek water to the trade. Done. Right after the trade, Luo Yao invited me to a small group chat. The group owner was Yang Tong, the military captain whose survival tips had saved lives on the first night. He welcomed me personally and said he'd help me find living wood. Just like that, I had connections to an organized team. 2 days in this world, and things were already looking up. I hugged Chen Yun from behind while she poured hot water into our bowls. She said I was the one who made what people needed. We held each other for a moment. Then I made new tools at the workbench, 2 stone axes and a stone sickle, burning through all our remaining energy. That evening, I wove 8 more bird traps while Chen Yun rested by the fire. By the time I stopped, I had 10 traps ready. Then we had our private moment together. The stress of 2 brutal days melted away. Afterward, I checked my stats and noticed my mental energy had actually gone up. Turns out positive emotions help restore sanity in this world. We fell asleep hard, so hard that when rain started during the night, I didn't even hear it at first. We scrambled to put out our wooden bowls and basin to catch water. Then Chen Yun found cheap wooden basins on the marketplace, 5 for just 6 units of wood. We grabbed them before prices went up and lined them all outside. The rain was solving our water crisis. I took the water element fragment and held it out in the rain. The raindrops bent slightly toward it, forming a tiny whirlpool before fading. Strange. Then the queen bee sent me an urgent feeling. She wanted the fragment badly. I brought it to her, and she reached out with her antennae to touch it. Something shifted in our connection, something new and subtle. I couldn't tell what yet, but I closed the hive and let her have it. The treehouse's soil fertility had dropped to 65 out of 100. It was losing 5 points a day. Fertilizing had to happen soon, or our shelter would start falling apart. My base strength had gone up to 6, a 2-point increase in 2 days. Not huge, but real. While waiting for the rain to stop, I did squats, wall sits, and push-ups. My body was weak from years of office work, and I needed to change that fast. 15 push-ups was my limit, and the last few were ugly. But the burn felt good. Every bit of strength could mean the difference between life and death out here. The first thing I did after the rain stopped was deal with the fertility problem. Behind the treehouse, I dug a shallow hole and threw in everything disgusting we had. Rabbit guts, wolf remains, blood, organs. Chen Yun had collected ash from the fire pit, so I sprinkled that on top, then covered it all with dry leaves and soil. The smell was awful, but hopefully it would stop the fertility from dropping. We couldn't let our treehouse weaken. Then we headed northeast along the forest edge, setting out all 10 bird traps as we went. 1 every few hundred meters, each with chopped meat inside. After that, the real grind began. We needed 100 units of wood to upgrade the shelter. Each of us grabbed a stone axe and picked a spot. No talking, just the steady rhythm of chopping. Swing, chips fly, wipe sweat, repeat. Then a dog barked. We froze. In this world, any noise could mean danger. We pressed our backs against a thick oak, weapons ready. A golden retriever burst out of the bushes, followed by a young guy with glasses, covered in mud and sweat. His name was Wang Xing. The moment he saw us, his face lit up like he'd found his family. He practically tripped over himself running toward us, then actually did trip and fell face first into the mud. His dog, Duo, ran to his side and barked at us, not threatening, more like, "Please don't hurt my idiot owner." Wang Xing said he recognized Chen Yun from the survival tips she'd posted in the chat group. He said that message might have saved his life. His talent was communicating with dogs, and Duo could help scout and find food. He asked to join us. I felt for the kid, but I had to say no. We could barely feed ourselves. Our shelter was small, resources were tight. I told him gently but clearly. His face fell. Duo whimpered and nudged his leg. But I offered to add him as a friend so we could stay in touch. That cheered him up right away. Before he left, I pulled him aside and warned him, "Don't trust everyone. Don't tell strangers where your shelter is. Bad people can be worse than wolves." He nodded seriously and headed off with Duo into the trees. After he was gone, Chen Yun and I talked it over. He seemed genuine, but we couldn't take chances. I decided to have the bees watch our shelter from his direction, just as a precaution. If anyone or any dog approached, we'd know early. We went back to chopping. By afternoon, we'd gathered 58 units of wood total, more than halfway to our goal. Chen Yun also cut some fibergrass with the stone sickle. As the light turned golden, the familiar unease started creeping back. We didn't push our luck. We packed up and headed home. Still had to check those bird traps on the way back. 5 of our 10 traps had caught birds. Not bad at all. When we got back inside, the treehouse was packed. Dried wolf meat hung on a rack over the fire. 6 basins of rainwater lined the wall. The beehive sat in its corner, and now we had 5 more crows. There was barely room to stand. I had to store some wood outside just to move around. I got to work at the workbench making cages. Each one cost 1 energy point to craft and another to list for trade. With 8 energy left, I could make 4 cages tonight. Then I got a message in the resource group. A guy named Zhou Li had found 2 pieces of living wood, the rare material I needed to upgrade our shelter. He wanted a crow cage for them. I told him to wait while I finished crafting. While I worked, Chen Yun was doing a dozen things at once. Turning dried meat strips, checking the wolf hide, she was softening in ash water, and laying out fibergrass to dry. She wanted to weave a sleeping mat so we wouldn't have to sleep on the bare floor anymore. Watching her manage all these little details of daily life in the middle of a survival nightmare, it hit me somewhere deep. I scooped about 30 grams of honey from the hive. The queen was happy to share. I dissolved it in warm water and split it with Chen Yun. That sweet, golden liquid was the best thing I'd tasted in days. We needed the carbohydrates too. You can't live on just meat. Then we both exercised. Squats, wall sits, push-ups. Chen Yun joined in this time. We worked in silence, just the sound of the fire and our breathing. Late that night, the 4th cage was done. I listed the first one and traded it to Zhou Li for the 2 pieces of living wood. They were smooth, warm to the touch, with faint face-like patterns in the grain. Strange and beautiful. I finally had what I needed to upgrade the treehouse. For the other 3 cages, I left the listing vague. Trade for weapons, armor, or useful items. The offers poured in immediately. The best one was an obsidian battle blade, blue quality, plus 30 combat power, with a bleeding effect. The durability was low at only 20, but the sharpness was incredible. I took it. The blade was light as air and had a dark, glass-like glow in the firelight. The second cage went for a berry drink recipe book. Not as flashy, but with our berry bush and farmland plans, it could be very valuable down the road. The third offer came from Yang Tung himself. A pair of green quality bone leg guards with plus 18 strength and an intimidation trait that scared weaker creatures. He'd sent the offer privately instead of mentioning it in the group chat. I realized why. He didn't want me to feel pressured. If I said no, nobody would know, and things wouldn't be awkward. Smart man. I respected that even more and accepted the trade. I strapped the leg guards on. They fit well and felt solid. Then I picked up the obsidian blade. Cold handle, impossibly light, the edge cutting the air with a whisper. This was a real weapon. The recipe book had a learning progress bar, so you couldn't just memorize it instantly. Disappointing, but we'd work through it. After all the trading was done, I went back to my exercises. The sweat, the aching muscles, the feeling of getting a tiny bit stronger each day, I was starting to crave it. When the sun came up, I placed the last unit of wood on the ground. 100 units total. Finally enough to upgrade our shelter. We moved the beehive away just in case, and Chen Yun hit the confirm button. The treehouse started glowing faintly green along its bark. The upgrade would take 5 hours. While we waited, I checked with the queen bee. No sign of Wang Xing or his dog near our shelter. Good. I told her to keep watching, especially around the dead-looking trees. We headed out to dig up the berry bush we'd found earlier. That took over 2 hours of careful shoveling, pulling roots, and clearing stones. My back was killing me by the end. Then we chopped more trees for tonight's birdcage production. On the way, our traps caught 4 more crows. I tested putting a live crow into storage. It came out confused but alive. That made carrying them much easier. When we got back, the upgrade was done, and the treehouse looked completely different. The trunk was thicker, darker, healthier. Small green leaves had sprouted on the branches. It had grown to nearly 30 meters tall. Inside, the space had more than doubled, from 20 to almost 50 square meters. Everything that used to be crammed against the walls now sat in the middle with room to spare. Durability jumped to 500, energy capacity went up to 30, and the recovery trait improved to +3 per hour for both stamina and sanity. Blue quality gave us 30 energy compared to the 20 that white shelters got after upgrading. The quality gap was bigger than I'd expected. Best of all, we unlocked an expanded area outside for building and a new barricade blueprint. The fertility was up slightly to 66. My composting was actually working. I got to work making cages. We now had 12 crows stored up. I made the first cage but decided not to sell it right away. We needed fertilizer badly. Chen Yun found someone selling bird droppings fertilizer on the marketplace, 20 units for a fair price. She bought it and befriended the seller, a woman named Chi Muyao who had a steady supply from bird flocks near her cliff shelter. We'd set up regular trades with her. I also messaged Wang Xing with a tip: buy food, make bird traps, catch crows, and sell caged birds. His market was different from ours, so there was no competition. Chen Yun asked why I was helping him. I told her it cost us nothing and helped more people survive. Plus, keeping our humanity mattered. With the fertilizer ready, I started building our farmland, a 3-meter square plot in front of the treehouse. The energy flowed out from the shelter and sank into the soil. It would take 6 hours. Then I went into full production mode at the workbench. Cage after cage, listed for trade, offers flooding in. I picked carefully and came away with some incredible things. A stone cooking pot with a chance to give food special effects, a green wood bed that helped recovery, 5 rolls of herbal bandages, a wooden breastplate for my chest, and a stone slab roasting recipe. That night, Chen Yun and I lay on our new bed, an actual bed, not the hard floor. It smelled like fresh wood and felt like luxury after what we'd been through. But as I held her, a thought nagged at me. Things were going well. Too well. The darkness that crept in every night. Those shadow creatures that had already killed nearly 1,000 people. Would they really stay content just wandering outside our walls forever? I planted the berry bush in our new farmland that morning. A small 9-square-meter garden, fenced with sharpened branches. I buried some bird droppings fertilizer near the roots and hoped for the best. The treehouse's fertility had dropped to 62. After the upgrade, it was eating through nutrients faster than before, like a growing kid needing more food. I buried more fertilizer in 2 spots around the base and made a mental note to stock up. What if Chi Muyao, our fertilizer supplier, didn't survive long enough to keep trading? I had to think ahead. Chen Yun called me in for dinner. She'd learned the stone slab grilling recipe already and was frying thick wolf meat in our new stone pot with salt. It was crispy outside, juicy inside, the best meal we'd had here. Even better, the food triggered a special trait, a 5% boost to exercise effectiveness for 6 hours. The recipe was more valuable than I'd realized. Better ingredients would probably unlock even stronger effects. Right after we finished eating, the queen bee sent me an urgent message. Her scouts had found living wood deep in the forest. But there was something else there too. Some kind of creature with an aura so strong the bees didn't dare get close. I thought it over with Chen Yun. The living wood wasn't going anywhere, and rushing in unprepared could get us killed. But not knowing what that creature was felt even more dangerous. If we stumbled into it later without any information, we'd have no chance. Better to observe from a distance now. We geared up. I had my shield, obsidian blade, bone leg guards, and wooden breastplate. Chen Yun had her bow and a full quiver. We packed bandages, fire supplies, dried meat, and water. We also brought along a secret weapon, just in case. A marked worker bee led us deeper into the forest. The trees grew massive, the air turned cool and damp, and fallen leaves cushioned every step. Along the way we collected deadwood moss, more tough vines, and a patch of vivid purple-red mushrooms with white spots, hallucinogenic mushrooms that could put animals into a dreamlike state. We couldn't eat them, but I stored them carefully. They might be useful someday. The forest got quieter the deeper we went. No birds, no insects, just our footsteps and breathing. Then the guide bee landed on my shoulder, antennae trembling. We were there. We crouched behind a thick tree trunk and looked ahead. Chen Yun covered her mouth to stop herself from gasping. My eyes went wide. It was a clearing in the deep forest. In the center stood one of those, completely normal trees, the kind that holds living wood. But leaning against it was something that made my stomach drop. A nest. deathly white, almost 4 meters tall, shaped like a fallen egg. The stench of rotting flesh hit us from meters away. Pieces of corpses, some old, some fresh, were scattered around it. My temples started throbbing just from being near it, and my sanity was draining. I used Insight on my phone. Blue quality spider nest. 20 venomous spiders inside, with a special trait that slowed any non-spider creature's movement by 40% within its range. And the description said it would evolve into something worse over time. We needed to leave. Now, we turned and started creeping back, watching every step. Then my calf brushed against something, thin, sticky, flexible. Spider silk. A tripwire. The vibration shot along the thread like a signal flare. Seconds later, 10 black spiders the size of basketballs exploded out of the nest and charged straight at us. Our legs turned to mud. The stagnation effect kicked in. Every movement felt like wading through glue. Running was impossible. "Defend here," I shouted. I spotted a thick tree nearby. We prepared a vine ladder for exactly this kind of emergency. I shoved it against the trunk. "Climb first." Chen Yun grabbed the rungs, but the slowing effect made her painfully slow. The spiders closed to 10 meters. Then 5. I gave up climbing and pulled out my shield and obsidian blade. 3 spiders leaped at my legs. I dropped low, blocked with the shield, and swung the blade upward. 2 spiders split open like they were made of paper. The obsidian was incredibly sharp. The third bit down on my ankle, but hit the bone leg guards instead of flesh. Its fangs scraped against the hard shell with a horrible grinding sound. Then an energy arrow punched through it from above. Chen Yun had climbed high enough to shoot. That same arrow went clean through and killed another spider behind it. For down in seconds. I scrambled up the ladder while the remaining spiders were in chaos from Chen Yun's attack. From her perch, she was devastating. Cold eyes, steady hands. Arrow after arrow. 2 more spiders exploded. Another tumbled off the trunk. The surviving 4 tried to retreat to their nest, but Chen Yun wasn't letting them go. For arrows in rapid succession, 2 more dropped. 1 was crippled. Only a single spider made it back into a hole. 9 dead. The whole fight lasted maybe 3 minutes. I hung on the ladder gasping, drenched in cold sweat. Chen Yun's arms were shaking from the strain. We shared some water and tried to calm down. I checked the spider stats. Overall strength of 30, higher than either of us. They had nerve venom that could paralyze you and silk glands for trapping prey. Double abilities. If I hadn't had the obsidian blade, if Chen Yun hadn't been such an incredible shot, if we hadn't brought that ladder, we'd be dead. 11 spiders were still alive inside the nest. I wanted no part of that fight right now. "Let's retreat," I said. Chen Yun agreed. But then her eyes caught something. A flash of green near the base of the nest. From up on the ladder, Chen Yun spotted something behind the nest, a small plant wrapped in spider silk. Bright green leaves, about palm-sized, with 3 leaves at the top showing faint golden veins. She used Insight and nearly gasped out loud. Purple quality. A mandrake grass, 10 years old, filled with pure energy that living things could absorb. The description warned it could only be dug up after dusk, and eating it raw could cause unpredictable things. This was probably why the spiders had built their nest here. They were guarding it. We had to make a choice. 11 spiders were still inside, but a purple quality plant was too rare to walk away from. I threw a stone at the nest to test them. All 11 came pouring out, but this time they just circled around angrily and retreated when they couldn't reach us in the tree. They'd gotten smarter. So I came up with a plan. I'd go down to the ground as bait. The moment I touched their trip wires, they'd swarm me, and Chen Yun could pick them off from above while I fought the rest. I climbed down before she could argue. The second my feet hit the ground and I moved forward, the silk triggered. 11 spiders charged at me like a black wave. Chen Yun's first 3 arrows dropped 2 instantly and scattered the rest. I sidestepped to avoid being surrounded, turning a 5-on-1 into something manageable. My obsidian blade cut through them like they were nothing. 3 spiders sliced in half with 1 sweep. I blocked 2 more with my shield, knocked them back, then cut them down on the backswing. The last one rushing at me got an arrow straight through its open mouth, pinning it to the ground. All 11 done. The 12th, the one that escaped earlier, was already dead nearby with an arrow still in it. Chen Yun called down asking if I was okay. I told her I was fine. This round felt easier than the first. Fighting was terrifying, but avoiding it completely in this world meant slow death. Controlled risk was better than no practice at all. We cleaned up the battlefield. From the spider bodies, I harvested venom that could coat weapons, glands that could be ground into healing powder, and silk. The meat inside was purple-black and smelled horrible. The description said eating it without special treatment could cause mutations. I stored the corpses anyway. Maybe they'd work as fertilizer. I walked up to the empty nest and touched it with my blade. The surface wriggled slightly where I poked it, still alive somehow, even without the spiders. Creepy, but Insight still labeled it as a structure, not a creature. As for the mandrake, the description said it could only be properly harvested after dusk. Digging it up during the day would kill it. We wait until evening, I told Chen Yun. Then we come back for it. She nodded. We had a plan. Tearing apart the spider nest was the worst thing I've ever done. The silk was sticky and tough. My blade kept getting stuck. I switched to the stone axe, and with every swing, thick fluid oozed out, stinking horribly. Inside, the nest was even worse. Cocoons filled with half-digested remains, melted flesh floating in yellow-green liquid. We pushed through the nausea and stripped the whole thing down, collecting 40 units of spider silk. Then Chen Yun screamed. Under the layers of web was a human cocoon. A man, wrapped tight, his skin waxy and melting, eyes hollow, face frozen in terror. He'd been a survivor, just like us. Dead only a few days. The excitement from our victory vanished instantly. This was what happened when things went wrong in this world. You rotted quietly inside a monster's home. Chen Yun was shaking. I put my arm around her and told her we needed to remember him, and then keep living. We carefully cut open the cocoon. The smell was unbearable. Corpse fluid poured out and soaked the ground. Inside, I found two things, an old clay flower pot and the dead man's phone. The phone was labeled a civilization gift, a survival phone that could be absorbed by other survivors after the owner died. That shook us both. The flower pot was blue quality with a special trait. Any plant grown in it would develop thorns and produce special thorn materials. We understood immediately. This man had come for the mandrake. The temptation of a purple quality plant made him take the risk alone, and it killed him. We buried him under a big tree. No name, no words. Just some stones on top and the wind through the leaves. Then we chopped down the normal tree nearby and got 2 more pieces of living wood. After that, the exhaustion hit hard. My sanity was at 138. Chen Yun's had dropped to 97. She felt dizzy and heavy. We sat down, ate some dried meat and honey water, and tried to recover. While she rested, I chopped more wood and wove another basket. Hours passed. Then Chen Yun called me over, her voice urgent but quiet. The mandrake was glowing. A faint purple light pulsed around it like breathing, and those golden veins on the top leaves seemed to flow with light. A sweet, fresh scent drifted from it. The sun had set, evening had come, and the plant was waking up. I lifted the basket over the plant and reached in to dig around the roots. Then it moved on its own. The root, shaped like a tiny white radish, jerked out of the soil by itself and started wriggling. Then it made a sound, like a baby crying, a plant that could move and scream. I didn't freeze. My hand shot out and grabbed the root before it could escape. The cry got louder, sharper. The whole thing was thrashing in my grip. I shoved it into my storage space with some soil before it could get away. Our mental energy was dangerously low. Let's go, I said. Back to the shelter. Now, I saw that black shadow again. Chen Yun said in a very low voice, each word tense. Ignore it. Li Wei held Chen Yun's cold fingers tightly. They almost started jogging. The forest was changing. The dim light of dusk was thinning visibly. Chen Yun's breathing began to become irregular. This doesn't feel right, she muttered. I think things are swaying, she said. The edges of the leaves were no longer clear, and the tree trunks looked slightly blurry. Li Wei glanced at her side profile. Her pupils looked a bit unfocused, and her gaze was slowly drifting. How much mental energy do you have left? Chen Yun sluggishly opened her hand. 89 points, 60%. Li Wei's heart sank. He still had over 130 points left, though he also felt a vague pressure and a grayish tint in his vision, but not as severe as hers. The consequence of losing 50 mental points. Stay calm. He held her hand tightly, with real strength. The more scared you are, the faster it drops. Think of something else. Go back, light a fire, cook some meat soup, and drink it warm. We still have many winters to get through together. He kept talking, describing small, specific, warm scenes. But Chen Yun's steps became more and more unsteady, and she staggered. Li Wei used his arm to steady her and pulled her into his embrace. Honey, Chen Yun leaned on his shoulder, panting quickly. I'm feeling a bit dizzy. My vision is a little blurry. Just ahead, Li Wei half supports, half helps her, quickening his steps. Just as the outline of the shelter becomes faintly visible through the dark gaps in the trees, a shadow appears. It no longer follows the usual rules, a quick glance, and it's gone in an instant. This time, it emerged directly from the shadow of a thick oak tree, skimming along the ground, rushing toward the two of them. Its form is hard to describe. It's not solid, more like a bug. Li Wei's muscles tense instantly. He doesn't let go of Chen Yun, holding her with one arm while pulling out a black obsidian blade with the other. The tip points at the writhing shadow. But, about 20 meters away from them, it pauses, as if examining. It has no eyes or facial features, but Li Wei feels a hollow gaze fixed on his face. Then, suddenly, like smoke blown away by the wind or ink dropped into water, it vanishes without warning, dissolving into the air. Li Wei's palms are sweaty, and his heart pounds heavily in his chest. Only when he's sure there's no more danger does he slowly lower his sword, his voice dry. Let's go. The last stretch of the journey passes quickly. Li Wei pushes open the wooden door with his shoulder, and they tumble inside together, slamming the door shut with all his strength. Click. He quickly adds fuel to the fire in the center of the room. A warm, orange-red flame rises. The light and heat fill the space instantly, dispelling the chilling darkness that clings to their bones and cutting off the oppressive gloom outside. Chen Yun leans against the door, taking deep breaths. The trembling and shadowy haze that clouded her vision recedes like the tide. The world regains its clear outline and proper colors. Though simple, it feels real. It's okay now. Li Wei also sits by the fire, wrapping his arms around her as she approaches. They sit quietly for a few minutes, listening to the crackling of the wood and their own slow, steady heartbeat. Only when Chen Yun stops trembling does Li Wei help her to sit on the bed. He looks at the flickering flames and suddenly chuckles softly, a laugh filled with no joy, only self-mockery. Thinking quietly, he says, "Now that I think about it, we're not much different from that survivor who died in the spider's nest." Chen Yun looked up at him. "It's all about greed making people blind." Li Wei wiped his face. "Knowing that your condition isn't good, your mental energy is low, and you're far from home, yet your mind is still focused on the resources you almost have." Chen Yun silently nodded. She remembered the pride after cleaning the nest during the day, and the excitement and urgency when facing the Mandela grass. One successful fight and a purple harvest almost made them forget the harsh rules of this world. "I also just realized," she whispered, "low mental energy feels like this. It's not just a simple number. It really takes away your perception of the world, weakens your judgment, and pushes you toward danger." They used a risky evening to define a clearer boundary. Between desire and survival, where should that line be drawn? Survival always comes before greed. At the workbench, GG, a small, 2-palm-high white radish, with 3 shiny little leaves on top, was circling Li Wei's shoes. It was the Mandela grass they captured. After releasing it, it seemed to adapt quickly to the warmth inside, changing from fear to happiness. But its unique language, Li Wei couldn't understand at all. Li Wei was counting today's harvest. Today's tree cutting was not very efficient, only 52 units. Plus the 31 units left from upgrading yesterday and making the cage. As for the branches, he was too lazy to count, but there were plenty, as shown by the firewood outside the shelter. He arranged the task of making a bird cage. Li Wei sat down by the fire pit, next to Chen Yun. The firelight reflected her pale face, still lacking color, with a hint of sensitivity from her recent shock in her eyes. Li Wei knew she needed more than just rest right now. "Darling," he softened his voice and nudged her with his shoulder. "I found something I haven't told you yet. You won't be mad, right?" Gee. Suddenly, the Mandela grass had moved to the warm fire pit too. Its leaves stretched out comfortably, as if basking in the fire. This safe and special environment clearly made it feel very comfortable. Chen Yun glanced at the small creature happily enjoying itself, deliberately turned away, and snorted. Don't tell me anymore. I don't want to hear it. Li Wei held back his laughter and intentionally stretched his voice. Really don't want to hear? Fine, I won't say anything. You're so annoying. Chen Yun turned back, scolding him with a light punch, and the tension in her eyes finally eased a little. Hurry up and tell me, what did you find that you were hiding from me? Li Wei leaned close to her ear, lowered his voice with a teasing tone. That day, when we were together doing things, it seemed to help speed up our recovery. I see you're so exhausted tonight. Just sleeping might not be enough. Maybe we could play cards to cheer up? Gee. Phew. At your age, still not serious. Chen Yun's face flushed suddenly, unsure if it was from embarrassment or heat, and she pushed him away hard. Go away. Look, it's laughing at you. Eat your meal. All you do is think about nonsense. Li Wei chuckled happily, successfully shifting her attention. Looking at the dark brown dried meat and plain broth in the bowl, Li Wei sighed and grinned. Don't we have anything else? Is it just dried meat? My teeth are almost worn down by this stuff. What do you think? Chen Yun sipped her soup, rolled her eyes at him. Three-headed wolf. After drying, there's only this much left. If we didn't trade some of the dried wolf meat, it would be gone after a few days. You act like a big eater, and you're still joking, she calculated. Right now, there's about 25 pounds of dried wolf meat left. It's well dried, with a shelf life of a month. We should save it, and with some honey, it should last us about 10 days. 10 days. Li Wei chewed on the number, frowning. The key is, we can't rely only on honey for carbs. That stuff is for emergencies, not a meal. We now have farmland, and today we still have energy left. I plan to start another plot. I remember seeing someone selling grain seeds in the market earlier. I'll check it out later. By the way, he remembered another important matter. How is it with asking Qi Muyu about that thing? She agreed, nodded Chen Yun. Wang Xing spoke in the large group, explaining the purpose of the crow cage, and many wanted to exchange theirs. However, her shelter didn't seem to have upgraded, so she only agreed to exchange 5 per day. 5 is fine, Li Wei decided immediately. Today, all the bird cages made will be exchanged for bird droppings fertilizer. This stuff needs to be stored. Farms need fertilizer, and treehouses do too. We can't run out. After discussing the main matter, the soup in the pot was almost finished. The warm feeling of fullness drove away the last bit of cold. Li Wei looked at Chen Yun's gentle but tired face under the firelight, moved closer, and wrapped his arm around her waist. The bird cage still needs some time to be ready. His voice lowered, carrying a gentle tone that left no room for refusal. How about we take this time to recover a bit? Chen Yun's ears turned slightly red. She looked up at him, glaring, but her eyes showed little annoyance, more embarrassment and a hint of agreement. She said nothing, just leaned gently into his embrace. Love me, omitted for length. About 3 hours later, mandrake grass had been curious under the bed for 3 hours, chirping along with the rhythm now and then. Exhausted, Chen Yun wrapped in clothes, curled up on the green wooden bed. After completing her deal with Qi Muyao, she quickly fell asleep. Her breathing was steady and long. The last traces of shock on her face finally smoothed out. Li Wei was also very tired but forced himself to stay alert. He grabbed his phone. He used his last energy to allocate resources. He opened a second farm plot, crafted 4 new stone axes, and with the last completed bird cage, he exchanged for 20 cluster grain seeds in the shop. After finishing everything, he held Chen Yun softly in his arms, feeling her steady heartbeat and warm body, smelling the faint scent of sweat in her hair. The next morning, Li Wei opened his eyes, feeling as if all his strength had been drained, exhausted from overwork. He sat up and saw Chen Yun busy by the fire pit, looking healthy with a rosy complexion, smiling as she cooked. Woke up. She glanced back at him. There's honey water nearby, warm. A sweet liquid flowed down his dry throat. He took a long, deep breath and looked around the room. Where's the little guy? His voice was still a bit hoarse from waking up. Chen Yun pointed to a corner of the shelter with a wooden spoon. Li Wei looked over, first surprised, then couldn't help but laugh. In the corner, inside a deep brown thorny flower pot, the soil was normally empty, but now a mandrake plant was sitting upright. Its chubby, carrot-like body was mostly buried in the soil, with only a round top and 3 green, heart-shaped leaves visible. It had somehow planted itself back into the pot. This little thing. Li Wei put down his bowl, walked over, and squatted down to look carefully. The flower pot's information had been updated. Furniture, thorny flower pot, blue, durability, 9/20ths, soil fertility, 49/100ths, planted plant, thorny mandrake, and about the mandrake itself. Plant, thorny mandrake, purple, level, first, age, 10 years, special. Trait, magic essence, contains a high concentration of pure, easily absorbed energy essence. Description, a legendary magical plant from the eternal realm, gradually mutating due to chance. Mutated, Li Wei gently touched one of its leaves. At the edge of the leaf, tiny bumps could be felt. Not sharp, but definitely harder than yesterday. A purple quality plant that adapts to its environment and periodically produces special materials was an unexpected delight. He took out a little bird droppings fertilizer, carefully sprinkled it around the pot, and watered it. Fertility 111. After caring for this suddenly obedient little creature, Li Wei picked up the gift of civilization survival phone he had obtained from the dead in the spider nest. It had been thoroughly cleaned, but a faint smell still lingered at the tip of his nose. The phone's shell was cold, the screen lit up, but all the app icons were a dull gray, unresponsive. He paused for a moment, then unlocked his own phone and slowly brought it closer. Detected a compatible survival phone for fusion. Do you want to absorb it? Li Wei thought for a moment, then decisively pressed yes. Buzzing. The iPhone's body, starting from the edges, quickly became transparent as if erased by an invisible rubber. In just 2 or 3 seconds, it disappeared completely, as if it had never existed. Almost at the same time, a notification popped up on his phone. Consumption complete. You can upgrade one mobile app. Please choose from the following apps to upgrade. Insight, weather. Hey wife, come take a look, Li Wei called Chen Yun. Chen Yun thought for a moment. 2 options, physical attributes or shelter. The first helps us understand our body better. The shelter is related to us, but you've linked it to my shelter. I think it's better to wait until you have your own shelter before choosing this. That makes sense, Li Wei nodded. Then, physical attributes. App upgrade will take about 3 minutes. The wait wasn't long, but it made him a little anxious. Li Wei unconsciously rubbed the edge of his phone, wondering if he could just add points to his attributes directly. When the progress bar filled up, a chime sounded again. Upgrade complete. Please check the attribute interface for new features. Li Wei immediately opened the familiar icon for physical attributes. As it turned out, he was overthinking. The interface layout had a slight change. Below the 6 basic attribute values, there was a new tab. Follower. His heart skipped a beat, and he clicked on it. Follower 0/1. Function details. You can invite a wanderer to become your follower. Currently, you have 0 first followers. Tap for details. Wow. After reading the details, Li Wei took a deep breath, feeling like he had contributed a little to the warming of the eternal domain. What's wrong? Chen Yun noticed his strange expression. Li Wei handed over his phone. Chen Yun quickly looked through it, her face also turning serious. This looks almost like a slave contract. Let's leave it for now. The world is so cruel. Maybe we'll need it someday. Li Wei took back the phone, closed the interface, and ended the topic. He pushed open the wooden door, and the cool, moist morning air rushed in. The second farm plot had been cleared. To the right front of the treehouse, the dark brown soil was soft and moist. Across from the farmland where the gray berry bushes grow, there is a narrow path between us. Li Wei took out 20 grain seeds, evenly and sparsely planting them in the new field. He dug small holes, covered them with soil, and counted to 5. Only 20 seeds were planted in 9 square meters, with wide spacing that even he thought was a bit luxurious. Next to him, the gray berry bushes transplanted yesterday had already stood upright, with leaves spread out, looking healthy and lively. That's good, if they live, he said, patting the dirt on his hands, feeling more at ease. After a simple breakfast, the two of them took their tools and empty cages and headed to the forest edge to collect the bird traps from yesterday. In the first vine basket, a crow was curled up in the corner, feathers messy, eyes scared, but still alive. Chen Yun carefully moved it into a wooden bird cage. Tell me. Chen Yun looked at the frightened black bird in the cage and suddenly asked, Those shadowy monsters at night are so dangerous. Why do some animals seem to survive? Aren't they afraid? Li Wei was checking the next vine basket and paused when he heard this. He thought for a moment and slowly said, I guess those shadow monsters, let's call them that, probably target their attacks selectively. They seem to be connected to spirit or intelligence. He organized his thoughts to make his explanation clear. When our mental energy is low, we can see them or even be attacked. What is spirit? Roughly, it's the level of intelligence, reason, or awareness. Humans have much higher intelligence than ordinary animals. So, could it be that? He looked at Chen Yun. These shadow monsters are actually hunting beings with high spirits? Animals have weak mental activity, so in their eyes, it's like background noise or tiny bugs not worth noticing. And we, because we are smarter and more mentally active, are like torches in the dark, very noticeable. Chen Yun pondered, like insects attracted to light, but not crashing into stones. That's about right, Li Wei nodded. This also explains why. We need shelters. They might not only provide physical protection, but also block our mental signals, helping us stay hidden at night. And these animals are not very bright, so they are relatively safe. This guess may not be entirely correct, but it provides a reasonable explanation. Chen Yun nodded and did not ask further. Throughout the morning, they caught 7 crows. They then started their routine tree-cutting work. The axe swung up and down, wood chips flew everywhere, and sweat quickly soaked their backs. At noon, they took a short break, checked the bird cages, and added 5 more birds. In the afternoon, they continued chopping wood until the sun began to set. Exhausted, they headed back and brought home 6 more crows. By the end of the day, they had caught a total of 18 crows, and the amount of wood reached a new high of 122 units. But the cost was also very high. Back at the treehouse, Li Wei felt his legs were as heavy as lead. His stamina was only 70 left. Chen Yun also leaned on the doorframe, her face pale, with stamina at 90. This stamina, Li Wei sat against the wall, feeling it was hard even to lift his arm. Once it drops below half, everything feels completely different. It's not just tiredness. His heart was pounding fast, and even when he tried to slow his breathing, he still felt short of breath. Drinking water and eating only provided very brief relief. Continuing to work relied almost entirely on sheer willpower. He had no doubt that if his stamina hit 0, it wouldn't just be exhaustion. It could be complete failure or even death. That's better than being chased by shadow monsters. Chen Yun also sat down beside him, her voice tired but hopeful. Just chopping trees, farming, catching birds. It's tiring, but at least it's peaceful. After resting for a while, he finally managed to stand up, pile the day's wood outside, in the designated spot, and assign the work table to make bird cages. After finishing, he sat back on a tree stump by the fire pit and took out his phone. He opened the chat group, where he checked who was talking every day. Because of limited energy, most survivors who want to keep going don't talk much. Those who don't care about energy and just chat casually have gradually disappeared over a few days. The IDs that were lively and joking in the group a few days ago have been silent for the past 2 days. This is also reflected in the number of survivors. In the large group, 10086, nearly 27,000 people had disappeared in 6 days. Behind these vanished numbers are silent shelters and possibly even quieter endings than those in spider nests. Sometimes, Li Wei is glad that Chen Yun pulled him back at the very beginning. Otherwise, he might also be one of those disappeared numbers. Compared to that, the large group of 10,010 has over 93,000 members. Environmental differences have a raw and harsh impact on survival chances. Li Wei was about to turn off his phone when a message from the Survival Supplies Preparation Team group chat popped up, mentioning at everyone. The message was from Yang Tong, and it made Li Wei sit up straight instantly. Yang Tong, everyone pay attention. Just received confirmed news. On the 7th night, after nightfall tomorrow, a large area of gray fog will spread across all regions. Unknown monsters will appear in the fog, attacking all survivors and shelters. Everyone, start preparing immediately. Prioritize buying weapons, armor, healing supplies, and defensive building plans. Later, I will send a warning in the regional group. Be ready. The message hit like a big stone in a calm pond. Ruo Yao responded almost immediately. Is the source of this message from the fortune teller's prediction? A few members who joined later also sent worried or questioning emojis. Monsters in the fog? What kind are they? Can the shelter hold out? What should we prepare? Are torches useful? Yang Tong. The exact form is unknown, but they are definitely dangerous. Shelters are the first line of defense, but not completely safe. I suggest reinforcing doors and windows immediately and preparing long-range attack tools and melee weapons. Everyone, the survival test is coming. The group was filled with a serious, received, flood. Li Wei put down his phone and looked at Chen Yun, noticing she was also raising her head with the same shock and tension in her eyes. Seventh night. Monsters in the fog. Chen Yun's voice was a bit hoarse. Plans, weapons, medicines, reinforcement materials. Li Wei quickly listed everything, speaking faster. Stop barriers must be made immediately, and we need more equipment. He grabbed his phone again, fingers flying over the shop interface. He couldn't wait for the usual process of requesting trades. He had to take the initiative, even if it meant using more energy for trading. Previously, I noticed some items during browsing. Quickly, he focused on the first trade item. Blueprint, floral crown headpiece, green. Level, first tier, materials needed, 12 units of fresh flowers, manufacturing energy, 2 points, manufacturing time, 1 hour, description, a delicate headpiece woven from natural flowers that slowly soothes the wearer's mind and restores a small amount of sanity. Seller's request, suitable weapons, armor, or healing items. Without hesitation, Li Wei immediately submitted a trade request, offering the recently crafted birdcage in exchange to see if the trade could work. Soon, he successfully obtained the blueprint. He looked up, the glow from the fire pit flickering in his eyes, reflecting determination and urgency. Before night falls tomorrow. Before night falls tomorrow, we must arm the treehouse. The firelight cast half of Li Wei's face in shadow. He stared at his phone screen, fingers rapidly tapping the virtual keyboard, pausing occasionally with a furrowed brow. The 10086 trading mall interface kept refreshing. The second trade, he acted almost without hesitation. Tool, stone arrow mold, white. Level, first tier, materials needed. 2 units of tier 1 stone. For units of tier 1 branches, manufacturing energy. 1 point, time needed, 40 minutes. Description, a rough but practical mold. Placing it on the workbench unlocks the option to craft stone arrows. The item isn't very good, even somewhat crude, but at this moment, it means reliable ranged ammunition. For those heavily relying on Chen Yun's bow and arrows, its value surpasses even a green weapon. Li Wei acted immediately, trading a birdcage for it. Once the trade was complete, the mold was stored in his inventory, giving him a sense of relief. The third and fourth trades. Lightweight leather armor, green. Level, first tier, overall strength, 18, durability, 29 special trait, light and agile, slightly increases agility and speed. Description, leather armor made from unknown beast hides, with dense textures and reinforced with hardened bone plates at key points. This is for Chen Yun. Li Wei's idea is very straightforward. If close combat cannot be avoided, agility becomes her second life safeguard. Armor, oak shield, green, level, first tier, overall strength 21, durability, 50/50ths, special trait, sturdy. Increases shield's durability. Description, made from a solid piece of oak, reliable and strong. It is also heavier than what he currently uses. The shield is thicker overall, with a border around the edge, and the handle is wrapped with non-slip cloth. Weapon bone spike wolf tooth club, green, level, first tier, overall strength 19, durability, 25/25ths, special trait, none. Description, made from a sturdy animal bone tightly bound together. With a fierce white bone spike embedded at the top, powerful and heavy. The obsidian blade is extremely sharp, but its durability is deadly. He needs a reliable backup melee weapon. Each item consumes 1 crow cage. In District 10010, cages are common and many people sell them. In District 10086, cages are also not rare, but crows are rare and unique business. It's uncertain how long this business can last. Li Wei feels anxious. It takes 30 minutes to make a cage, so he can only wait to craft one and trade it for an item. His usual routine was to focus on crafting items after returning at dusk, but today's sudden event disrupted his rhythm. As Li Wei ponders, he notices a blueprint. Blueprint, simple watchtower, green, level, first tier, construction materials, 20 units of first tier wood, 20 units of first tier fibergrass/vines, construction energy, 5 points, construction time, 10 hours, special trait, eagle eye, when within the watchtower's range. The view distance greatly increases and dynamic visual capture improves significantly. Description: a simple high vantage point, perhaps allowing you to spot danger earlier. Seller's request: we'll trade for anything suitable. Just feel free to negotiate. Li Wei's heart beats faster. This item is almost custom-made for Chen Yun. As long as the monsters in the fog are not flying units, the value of this lookout tower cannot be measured. He hung up a birdcage and applied for a trade. He waited. The fire pit crackled softly with wood, and time passed second by second. 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. The trade request sank without response, like a stone falling into the sea. Li Wei clenched his lips and clicked on the seller's avatar to send a friend request. Almost instantly, it was accepted. Li Wei, brother, I want to trade the blueprint for the lookout tower. I'll add another birdcage in exchange. The effect of the birdcage is well known in the group now. You're selling to others, so you won't have trouble selling it. I only have a crow. The reply came back quickly, as if it had been prepared in advance. Fengyiba, stop the nonsense. One isn't enough, I want 3. Send the trade request if you agree. If not, forget it. Li Wei stared at the message. 3 birdcages. He looked at Chen Yun beside him, then remembered Yang Teng's warning about unknown monsters in the fog. He made a quick decision. Li Wei, okay, my workbench is making them now. I will send the trade request in 30 minutes. Fengyiba, I'll wait for you. 30 minutes later, Li Wei opened the trade interface, changed the number of birdcages to 3, and submitted again. This time, the trade was almost instant. Trade completed. The blueprint for the simple lookout tower has been stored in your inventory. Li Wei let out a long, relieved breath, and a thin layer of sweat broke out on his back. It was worth it. Before the next birdcage was finished, Yang Teng tagged everyone in the large group 10086. Yang Teng. On the night of the 7th day, that is, tomorrow after nightfall, a large area of gray fog will spread, covering all regions. Unknown monsters will appear in the fog, attacking all survivors and shelters proactively. This message instantly sparked chaos in the 10086 group, with many silent members suddenly flooding the chat. Yang Teng's previous 2 announcements in the group had proven to be true and effective, so no one doubted his words now. Wang Yi, is this real? Captain Yang, don't scare me. Su Xiaoza, monsters in the fog? What do they look like? Ah, my weapons are almost broken. Tao Lu, does anyone have extra weapons? I'll trade all my food for them. Mo Ting, what do we need to reinforce the shelter? Wood? Is that okay? Panic spread at lightning speed. Next, Li Wei watched helplessly as the prices of items related to weapons, armor, fortified shelters, and healing in the mall skyrocketed like a rocket. Even when prices doubled, they were snapped up immediately after listing. More often, people were shouting in large groups, trading goods, or seeking urgent supplies. Even food, which was rarely seen before, now appeared in large quantities in the mall, with sellers only wanting to exchange for higher quality green weapons or defense blueprints. The market, driven by survival instinct, changed instantly. Li Wei knew that the golden time he used to buy supplies with his birdcage had ended. Should we also send an early warning in the 10010 group chat? Chen Yun asked, leaning over and looking at Li Wei. Li Wei closed the noisy 10,086 group chat, rubbed his aching temples, and said, let's do it now. At least it gives everyone some time to prepare. It's always good. Won't that affect our future purchases in the 10010 channel? Chen Yun asked. There will be some impact, but there are fewer good items in the 10010 channel anyway, Li Wei replied. Just as he finished speaking, his attention was caught by the phone screen handed to him by Chen Yun. She pointed to a recent refreshed trade. Item: simple Molotov cocktail times 20, gray quality. Level: first level. Description: Homemade dangerous item, filled with mixed oils and rough accelerants, very powerful. After throwing, it needs to be ignited again to create a continuous burning area. Molotov cocktails. Although they are gray quality and handmade, they still require secondary ignition. But in the current lack of area attack methods, this could be very effective for defense, especially against groups of monsters. Perfect. I also just finished making a birdcage. Li Wei's spirits lifted, and he quickly operated. He sent a trade request, waited, and confirmed. 20 rough clay jars filled with bottles of these incendiary devices, with weeds stuffed into the bottle openings, were stored in his inventory. A strong smell of oily fumes faintly wafted out. That's a big shot. I see the clay jars are homemade, and the oil too. Tomorrow, I'll try to add him as a friend. Got it, Chen Yun said, retracting her phone and looking serious. I've sent it. Go ahead. She opened the input box for the 10010 survivor group, made a few adjustments to Yang Tang's warning message, clearly and briefly edited it, then pressed send. The message was sent. There was a brief pause in the group chat, as if even the air had stopped moving. Immediately after, the entire 10,010 channel exploded with activity. Chu Shitong, monster in the fog? Attacking the shelter on purpose? That's nonsense, Shi Shun. Tomorrow night? My shelter isn't upgraded yet, Ma Mingyuan. The last warning about the shadow monster was from Chen Yun. I followed the advice and survived. This time, I believe it's real, Zheng Jijia. Fake monsters. I go out every day looking for food and haven't seen a single one. Instead of wasting time speculating, why not dig up some more potatoes? In the eternal realm, more people die of hunger than from monsters. Almost immediately, after Zheng Jijia spoke, a beautiful female avatar chimed in. Wang Xiuying, Brother Zheng is so right. Some people can't stand seeing others do well. With Brother Zheng's experience, following him to find food is better than just guessing. Stargazing admiration.jpg, but soon, different voices appeared. Cheng Feifei, Chen Yun has no reason to lie to us. It's better to believe it might be true. Zhou Mingho, no wind, no waves. Even if the chance is small, we can't afford to lose if it's a trap. I suggest everyone who can prepare start now. At least secure the doors well. Chen Yun looked at the rapidly scrolling screen, pursed her lips, and said nothing. She couldn't understand why Zheng Jijia kept picking fights with her. Li Wei glanced nearby, snorted coldly. Just as the debate paused, Zheng Jijia spoke again. Zheng Jijia. Fine, those afraid of death can keep messing around. I, Zheng Jijia, will build the feast group. The only goal is to make sure every brother and sister who follow me eats well. He then posted a screenshot of his talent. Talent. Glutton. Purple eating capacity doubles. Excess energy can be converted into fat, which increases defense. In emergencies, you can actively burn fat to restore health. Wang Xiuying immediately cheered him on. Wang Xiuying, Brother Zheng is amazing. His talent is so practical. With him leading, I feel at ease. Help me lead. Little sister is the first to sign up. Seeing this, Li Wei finally understood. This wasn't just simple doubt or disagreement. It was blocking the way. If the monster attack in the fog tonight is confirmed, then Chen Yun, who issued the earliest warning and has successfully warned before, will have an unbeatable reputation on channel 10010. At that time, Zheng Jijia will find it very hard to gather support or build a power base centered around himself. So, he must act first, before the event happens, to make a strong statement. He can question and belittle the warning's credibility and make a bold declaration, using his rare purple talent to attract attention. While everyone is anxious and confused, he quickly raises his flag. But Li Wei sneers at their actions. He still feels too full from eating. Looking at the large group, chat 10086, except for Yang Tong, who else is interested in forming factions? Living is already hard enough. Who has the energy for other things? However, this bold declaration seems to influence other survivors, or those with similar worries. A few usually active IDs, who seem to have some experience, start speaking up. Zhao Kuan, who can't shout slogans? I, Zhao Kuan of Blade Edge, will also form a war alliance, only accepting brothers who are willing to fight. Food, supplies, all spoken for by our blades, Sun Qian. Girls can also hold up half the sky. I'm planning to form the Rose Guard, sisters banding together for warmth and mutual support. The channel suddenly becomes chaotic, with slogans for forming alliances flashing across the screen. At this moment, an ID that surprises both Li Wei and Chen Yun speaks up. Wang Xing. At Chen Yun, if you form a team, I will be the first to join. I trust her more than some overconfident experts who think they're invincible. The channel falls silent for a few seconds. Wang Xing's words are direct, even a bit sharp, almost openly supporting Chen Yun. Then, voices of agreement start to rise. Jiang Yi, Master Wang Xing, is right. Chen Yun helped us last time. Du Shi. Chen Yun is kind and beautiful. I respect her leading us. Peng Jingxian. Yes, yes. Chen Yun should create a faction. We follow you. The pressure instantly shifts to Chen Yun. Li Wei looks at her, shakes his head, and softly says, not the right time. Then, Li Wei communicates with Wang Xing. Li Wei, the most important thing now is to survive the monster attack tonight. We can deal with other matters tomorrow. Wang Xing, brotherly. I just can't stand Zheng Jiji's attitude. He hasn't shown much skill, but he's acting so confident. Li Wei, it's nothing serious. Just mention it in the big group chat. We'll wait until tomorrow to see if the monsters attack the shelter tonight. We'll find out then. Wang Xing. Got it, Wang Xing. I just talked to big sister Chen Yun. She said the most important thing right now is to survive until tomorrow night. We'll see then if the monsters attack. This sentence put a pause on the chaos. The discussions in the chat didn't stop, but the fighting among groups was temporarily suppressed. Finally, everyone focused again on how to deal with the night attack. The night's preparations cost 24 energy points, but there was still some left. Li Wei decided to make a set of stone arrows first. After finishing, 5 energy points remained, enough to build a simple watchtower. There were enough resources. Both vines and grass had been collected in plenty. Choose a location to build. Li Wei built the watchtower in front of the main gate, completely blocking the shelter's exit. The door only had a small gap to open or close. Construction begins. Remaining time, 9 hours, 59 minutes, 59 seconds. Go to sleep. The next day, the sky was heavy and gloomy like lead. Location, green wilderness forest. Weather, cloudy turning to thick fog, 16 to 23 degrees Celsius. Nightfall countdown. About 12 hours today, Li Wei canceled the plan to cut trees. He needed to save every bit of energy. The workbench started working intensely from early morning, like a tightly wound gear. Building, wooden barricade, green. Level, first level, durability, 150 150ths, special trait. Resistance, cannot be jumped over by small or medium-sized creatures. Materials needed, 2 units of wood, 1 unit of vines or grass. Construction cost, 1 energy point. Build time, 20 minutes. Description, a 1x1 wooden barricade, simple but effective as a wooden obstacle. It has sharp stakes at the bottom that dig into the ground, helping to slow down and block small and medium creatures from charging forward. They can connect to form a simple defensive line. Li Wei quickly completed 16 construction tasks, just enough to enclose the farmland, leaving only a 2-meter exit facing the watchtower. After arranging the construction sequence, the two of them pushed open the wooden door and prepared to gather flowers. As the door opened, a rough wooden tower came into view. It was about 5 meters tall, with a 4x4 base at the bottom. The supporting pillars crossed and leaned against each other, wrapped tightly with tough vines and layered grass to secure them. The joints were tightly bound. 4 main wooden pillars stood straight up to support the tower. The middle section was reinforced with thin wooden beams slanting diagonally, also wrapped with vines and fibers. The top of the tower was a small platform, only 1x1 meter, with a low wooden fence around the edge. The floor was made of semicircular wooden planks, giving it a rough, primitive look. Not bad, Li Wei looked up and said. With this, Chen Yun's safety was greatly improved. Picking flowers was not easy. It wasn't just about taking one flower. They needed to gather a certain number of flowers to count as one unit. Fortunately, the queen bee had found a flower field before. Following a guiding bee, the two headed northeast. Talking about the queen bee, she seemed to have started evolving. Her appearance didn't change much, but her energy limit for contracts increased from 20 to 24 points. The increase was small, but it clearly showed that this little life was quietly changing in this new environment. Soon, they reached the flower field. It was hard to imagine that such a beautiful scene existed in the eternal realm. The hillside was covered with an unknown purple flower. Occasionally, worker bees landed on Li Wei's shoulders and arms, gently touching him with their sensitive antennae, showing closeness and joy. They didn't dare to delay and quickly started collecting flowers. After more than 2 hours of busy work, they gathered the required 24 units of fresh flowers. Back at the shelter, 8 barricades had been completed, and work on the remaining 6 was ongoing. Time was tight, so they immediately split up. The barricades required 14 units of energy, making flower crowns needed 2 points, and they still needed to craft 2 more sets of stone arrows to ensure enough supplies. That totaled 18 points of energy, leaving 12 points remaining. Li Wei decided to buy 2 units of stone and spend the rest on bird droppings fertilizer. Li Wei asked Chen Yun to handle the matter of purchasing supplies. He then took out a pickaxe and silently dug a deep hole at the entrance of the reserved passage. He placed sharpened wooden stakes at the bottom and covered them with fallen leaves. Around the trap, Li Wei also laid a thick layer of branches. Time passed unknowingly. The barricades were finished, and Li Wei quickly moved on to the next task, making flower crown headbands. Soon, the flowers collected were quickly turned into 2 fragrant flower crowns on the work table. Their gentle calming effect subtly eased the tense nerves. The stone arrow mold was also an important part. Filling it with stones and branches, powered by energy, a batch of 20 sharp-headed stone arrows was quickly produced. But that was not enough. Chen Yun first took out stored illusion mushrooms, patiently mashed them into a sticky pulp in a wooden bowl. Then, using a wooden stick, she dipped into the poison mixture and carefully coated each arrow tip. Next, she opened a wooden bottle containing spider venom, dipping the arrow tips into the dark green deadly liquid, ensuring the poison seeped into every stone arrowhead. 60 arrows with a strange matte sheen were stored in an arrow quiver. Nearby, 3 torches were checked again, and spare grease was stacked within reach. Even the 11 crows caught today in the bird trap, Li Wei lost the desire to check or deal with them, and simply stored them away. When everything was ready, dusk had already spread across the sky like diluted ink. Li Wei took out the obsidian blade, its cold surface reflecting the flickering fire. He slowly pressed his palm against the sharp edge, feeling its familiar weight. Are you ready? Fully armed. Li Wei overall strength. 1830 1921 18 is equal to 106 equipment. Obsidian blade, oak shield, wooden armor, bone strips for leg bindings. He looked at his own stats, a result of his efforts over the past 7 days. Then he raised his head and took one last look at the sky. Grayish-white mist was silently spreading from an unknown deep place, beginning to swallow the distant mountains, treetops, and the last struggling rays of sunlight. Then, they waited quietly. The pressure and fear in the darkness, they had both experienced it. In this suppressed environment, fighting in the fog was even more challenging. They have made the most complete preparations. Everything else is left to fate. A faint rustling sound came from nearby. The mandela grass that had slipped out again was now surprisingly quiet. Its leaves curled up next to his shoe, no longer making the chattering noise they used to. Li Wei took out a cigarette and lighter from the bottom of the storage box and silently lit one. Cough. The shelter's door was wide open. Through the flickering firelight, they could see the outside completely swallowed by swirling thick fog. Their view was limited to just a few meters, almost like being in total darkness. However, the fear that once made their scalps tingle, like a prickling sensation on their backs, and the feeling of being coldly watched by unseen forces, had disappeared. They looked at each other, both seeing doubt in each other's eyes. What's going on? Chen Yun asked softly. I don't know. Li Wei shook his head. He took a deep breath and, for the first time during the night, stepped out of the shelter's door. There was no mental shock as he expected, and no shadow lunged out of the fog. Only the thick fog wrapped around everything. He quickly climbed the watchtower and lit a torch placed at the top. Crack! The fire struggled to tear through the fog, pushing the visible range outward by a few meters. Chen Yun also climbed up and stood beside him on the narrow platform. Do you think it's because of this fog? She asked, watching the slow swirling gray and white ahead. Did it chase away the things in the dark? Or maybe it separated them, chased away, or replaced them, perhaps. No more suffocating feeling. That's a good thing. The hellish difficulty has at least been lowered to hard mode. Even so, neither of them relaxed. Their bows were still taut, and their knife handles gripped tightly. They whispered to each other in low voices, but all their senses were on high alert, waiting for visitors from the thick fog. Soon, an eerie fluctuation swept through their minds without warning. It wasn't a sound or a scene, but more like a warning directly imprinted on their consciousness. Almost simultaneously, from deep within the fog, came a distant howl, as if from ancient times. Whoop! Sound pierced through the fog with a wild, penetrating force, causing both of them to instantly break out in goosebumps. It's coming. The first shadow broke through the fog wall and appeared at the edge, illuminated by the firelight. Its gray-black fur was covered in mist, and its glowing green eyes looked like ghostly flames. Monster, Mist Wolf, green, level, first, overall strength, 30, health, 100, ability, fog concealment, moves faster and more quietly in thick fog, making it hard to detect. Description: a wolf that has been transformed by long-term exposure to the eternal fog. It is one of the basic predators and scavengers in the mist. Once the evil wolf appeared, it almost didn't hesitate. It used its limbs to rush straight toward the shelter at the center of the firelight. Then, splash! The trap worked as planned. Sharp wooden spikes pierced upward from the bottom of the pit, ruthlessly stabbing through its chest and abdomen. The wolf let out a short, mournful cry, struggled a few times, then stopped moving. Chen Yun's finger that was knocking the arrow relaxed slightly. But before he could catch his breath, a second and a third. Dark shadows leapt out from the fog one after another. They ignored their fallen comrades and charged directly toward the barrier made of stakes, as well as the trap that had already been tested once by the monster. Bang! Bang! The sound of heavy bodies falling echoed repeatedly, and two more wolves fell into the pit. But more wolves kept rushing forward. They trampled over their dead, using their flesh and blood to fill the bottom of the pit. The wolf that had been pierced was soon stomped into a shapeless mass. Li Wei's expression darkened. These monsters were more fierce and cold-blooded than he had expected. He no longer hesitated. He took out a rough clay jar firebomb from his storage space, aimed at the densest part of the wolves near the edge of the pit, and threw it with all his strength. The clay jar shattered loudly when it hit a wolf's back. The oil inside spilled out, but no sparks appeared. I almost forgot. This needs to be lit manually, Li Wei muttered. He took a deep breath, then flicked the nearly burnt-out cigarette in his hand. A tiny orange arc traced a delicate curve and precisely landed among the monsters. Boom! The flames roared like a greedy beast, raising its head fiercely. A sudden burst of orange light expanded rapidly, instantly engulfing the area and illuminating everything around clearly. Li Wei and Chen Yun both gasped in surprise. At the boundary between light and shadow, countless glowing green eyes appeared. Nearly 100 foggy wolves silently formed a semicircle, blocking their shelter and small barricade completely. Behind this wolf pack, a much taller shadow stood quietly. Its appearance was unclear, but just standing there, it radiated a heavy sense of pressure that could be felt from afar. Most of the foggy wolves were crowded at the entrance Li Wei had prepared, temporarily blocked by the sudden burst of flames. Others outside the barricades were frantically smashing into the wooden stakes with their bodies and claws. Some even backed up a few steps, then ran and jumped over the barricades, trying to clear the height in one leap, but most were pierced by sharp wooden spikes. Howling in pain and hanging there, struggling in vain. At this moment, the tall shadow deep in the fog sea raised its head and let out a different kind of howl. The sound was quiet, but carried a clear command. "It's giving an order." Chen Yun's voice tightened. She immediately drew her bow, and an arrow shot out swiftly, hitting a wolf that had just charged out of the flames, still burning. Li Wei's face darkened. He had thought that without mental pressure, he only needed to deal with the physical monsters, relying on defenses and ranged attacks to hold them off. But now, it seemed that the leader's intelligence had brought the fight back to a more dangerous level. The wolf pack, upon receiving the command, suddenly changed their attack pattern. They no longer charged blindly. Instead, Like loyal soldiers following a sacrifice order, they became even more frantic, rushing toward the flames. They used their burning bodies to slap at the fire and their blackened corpses to smother the flames. The once vigorous fire circle visibly shrank and flickered. Die! Li Wei shouted fiercely, continuously throwing remaining fire bottles from his storage into the densest part of the wolves. 10 bottles were thrown in quick succession, igniting wildly and quickly setting fire to the dry branches and leaves around. However, the ferocity of the foggy wolves also seemed to be fully ignited. They trampled over the charred bodies of their peers, enduring the intense pain of burning fur and skin, still howling as they charged inward. Poof! A fierce wolf, with flames flickering over its body and half its fur blackened, forcefully emerged from the fire. It howled and lunged at a main support pillar of the watchtower, opening its mouth wide, drooling and frothing, and began madly biting and scratching. Chen Yun quickly aimed her bow and shot an arrow into its open mouth, piercing through its brain. The wolf twitched and collapsed. It seemed something was emerging from the corpse, but there was no time to look closely. At the gap, a faint wolf head appeared again, and more wolves were trying to break through. "I'm going down," Li Wei acted quickly, his voice sharp like a bullet. "Clean up the outside and the ones rushing in." "Leave it to me, Li Wei," Chen Yun called out urgently. Li Wei didn't look back. He reached into his storage space and pulled out a wolf fawn club. He slid down quickly through the gap in the watchtower. When he was about 2 meters above the ground, he spotted a wolf rushing in below and leapt down. Bang! The wolf fawn club, heavy with his full weight, smashed into the side of a wolf's head. A sickening cracking sound of bones breaking rang out. The wolf didn't even grunt and collapsed softly. Li Wei landed and rolled to absorb the impact. When he got up, he had already put away the wolf fawn club. His obsidian blade was drawn, its cold edge cutting a dark arc in the firelight. On the tower, Chen Yun pressed her lips tightly, saying nothing more. Arrows shot out in rapid succession, targeting wolves trying to break through the flames or damage the barricades the most. Thanks to the precision of the watchtower's targeting, almost every shot hit its mark. The arrows coated with a mixture of poison showed their power. Wolves hit by the arrows often stumbled after a few steps and then fell into the flames, twitching. Li Wei moved swiftly within the narrow space below. 2 more wolves charged in from different directions. His oak shield blocked one's attack, while his right hand wielded his blade, slashing open another wolf's belly, blood staining his armor. Seeing more fog-covered wolves rushing in, Li Wei blocked a claw strike and shouted without looking back. "Throw all the remaining burning bottles. Throw them far away to expand the fire circle." Chen Yun heard him and grabbed the burning bottles from her storage space, then threw them with all her strength. A clever, wicked wolf seemed to notice Li Wei's momentary distraction and suddenly darted out from the shadow beside him, claws aiming straight at his waist and ribs. A foul, sharp wind hit his face. Li Wei reacted quickly. He lowered his left arm and precisely angled his oak shield to block. Bang! A dull sound echoed as the wolf's claws scraped fiercely against the shield, making a grating noise that was hard to bear. Using the recoil, he turned his body slightly to lessen the impact, then swung his battle blade like lightning. Thud! The wolf's head was knocked upward, and hot blood splashed on a half of Li Wei's face, carrying a strong, nauseating smell. With a new firebomb added, the flames in front of the door spread out several more meters. The wolf's attack was temporarily stopped by the fire, but this breathing space was very short. The fog wolf, which had been quietly watching, finally moved. It stepped forward steadily, and the wolves in front of it respectfully parted to the sides. The firelight finally revealed its full appearance. It was more than twice as large as an ordinary wolf, with shoulders nearly as tall as a human when on all fours. Its deep gray fur was thick like armor. The most frightening thing was its eyes, not green, but a dark purple swirling with mist, as if clouds were moving inside. It just stood there, giving off a heavy, oppressive feeling far beyond that of a normal wolf. Monster, Fog Mountain Wolf, purple, level, first tier, overall strength, 99, health, 250/250, special trait, toughness. Its fur and muscles are unusually resilient from years of soaking in the fog. Special trait, Wolf Pack Command. Greatly increases the attack desire, pain tolerance, and attack coordination of all nearby fog wolves. Description: the natural ruler of the fog wolf pack, possessing cunning close to that of humans and far superior in combat intelligence to ordinary wolves. Oh, it's coming in person. Chen Yun's face changed. She drew her long bow tighter, aiming her arrow directly at the fog mountain wolf. But the wolf turned around suddenly, dodging the arrow. Chen Yun's first miss tonight. Li Wei took a deep breath. He firmly planted his oak shield in front of him, with his obsidian battle blade across his chest. Sweat dripped down his forehead onto the hot ground. He knew that this leader was the real threat, far beyond an ordinary wolf acting on instinct. The leader of the evil wolves let out a deep growl. It suddenly sped up, but did not rush toward the flame gap. Instead, it turned sharply to the side where a section of the barrier was slightly loosened from previous attacks. Its dark purple eyes locked onto the main trunk of a barrier post. It raised a huge paw, larger than an ordinary wolf's claw, and with a fierce wind, struck down fiercely. Bang! Wood chips flew everywhere. The thick wooden post, wrapped in vines for reinforcement, was bent inward by this blow. In just one strike, the green-quality barrier post durability dropped nearly 1/5, showing clear structural damage. Chen Yun seized the barely noticeable moment after the attack to loosen her grip on the bowstring again. This time, she aimed her arrow at the soft spot under the wolf's armpit, slightly exposed by its claw swing. The giant wolf's massive body lowered itself, and the arrow brushed past its thick shoulder fur, flying into the dense fog behind. It seems we can only use that move now. Li Wei knew that with this leader's strength, a few more hits would cause a big gap in the side defenses. He quickly looked around. The scattered evil wolves rushing in had been temporarily cleared away. But outside, under the intimidation and command of the wolves, the pack changed tactics. They attacked the barriers from other directions with even more ferocity, the sound of collisions coming from all sides. The entire defense line was under heavy pressure. Chen Yun, clear out all the fog wolves. This big guy, leave it to me. Before he finished speaking, he ran toward the shelter's entrance. He issued a pre-prepared command to the queen bee. After evolving, the queen bee no longer needed to be close to communicate telepathically. The next moment, a deep, dense humming sound came from inside the hive. At first, it was faint, but it quickly grew louder, forming a terrifying roar. Whoosh! A dark cloud burst out from the hive's entrance. It was over 20,000 worker bees, swarming out under Li Wei's orders. Inside the hive, only 5,000 newly born worker bees and the queen bee itself remained to sustain the colony. They hovered briefly in the air. Then, like piranhas sensing blood, they charged toward the surrounding wolves. For a moment, the scene became strange and fierce. The individual bees are very small, and their flight paths are quick and unpredictable. When they sweep with their claws, they can only hit and knock down a few. More bees bravely land on the fierce wolf, especially targeting weak spots like the eyes, nose, mouth, and ears, stabbing their stingers into these areas. Yow, ugh! The howling of the wolf pack is mixed with pain and anger. One fierce wolf is stung by hundreds of bees at once, causing it to scream loudly and roll on the ground, scratching wildly. Another wolf frantically shakes its head, trying to shake off the swarm that has entered its ears. The venom from the bees may not be deadly, but the intense pain, numbness, and harassment quickly disrupt the wolf's organized attack. Chen Yun's pressure eases, and he takes the chance to shoot at the slowed wolves one after another, killing them. The bee swarm consumes energy at an astonishing rate, gradually reducing the wolf pack's numbers. Li Wei clearly sees that with each sting, a worker bee sacrifices its life, spinning and falling. After this battle, the bee colony will probably be silent for a long time. But right now, there's no time to worry. Snap! Another paw strikes. The damaged side of the barrier finally groans under the strain and breaks apart. A gap large enough for a wolf to pass through appears, but there are no wolves left to follow and fight. The wolf howls loudly, filled with bloodlust and anger. Its limbs bend slightly, and its strong hind legs burst with terrifying power. Its huge body shoots forward like a black-gray cannonball, heading straight for Li Wei. Li Wei quickly raises his oak shield in front of him, lowering his center of gravity. Boom! At the moment of impact, Li Wei feels as if he's been hit head-on by a charging rhinoceros. The immense force from the shield causes the oak to creak painfully. He is pushed backward uncontrollably, his feet carving two deep furrows in the newly planted farmland. He only stops when his back crashes heavily against the sturdy wooden wall of the shelter with a loud bang. His left arm holding the shield goes numb instantly, and his throat tightens. He clenches his teeth, forcing down the rising blood foam. His vision blurs and darkens from the violent shock. It's terrifying. Just as his sight begins to clear slightly, he sees the huge wolf once again closing in like a shadow, its bloody maw snapping toward his head with a stench of death. Life and death hung in the balance. Li Wei no longer resisted directly, but desperately rolled to the side and forward. At the same time, whoosh, an arrow shot precisely into the corner of the wolf's open mouth. It didn't go deep, but caused the wolf to pause slightly in its closing action. The poison-tipped arrow had some effect on the wolf, making it a bit sluggish, but it didn't become paralyzed like a normal evil wolf. Li Wei seized this fleeting chance, rolled to his feet, and swung his obsidian blade with all his strength, aiming at the wolf's relatively slender front leg joint. Clang! The feeling was wrong. The blade felt like it was cutting into thick rubber, with a strong resistance. In the end, it only opened a shallow cut, with dark red blood beads oozing out, but it didn't cause serious injury. The fur and muscles of this beast were tougher than expected. The wolf, in pain and furious, suddenly rose up, slapping down with its other front paw more fiercely. Li Wei barely managed to raise his shield to block. Bang! Crack! This time, a tiny crack appeared in the center of the oak shield. Almost slipping from his grasp, its durability dropped sharply. The powerful impact sent Li Wei flying, and he could no longer suppress the surging blood. Wow! A mouthful of dark red bruised blood spurted from his mouth. His chest felt as if hammered by a heavy iron mallet, aching painfully, and his vision darkened. Li Wei! Chen Yun's cry came from the tower, filled with tears. Despite his exhausted muscles, she tremblingly raised her bow and arrow, trying to hold the wolf back. The wolf gently shook its head, avoiding the light arrow flying toward it. Its icy and cruel purple eyes showed even more coldness and ruthlessness, clearly seeing that Li Wei was at his limit. It lowered its body, preparing to strike the final blow. Is he going to die? This thought flashed through Li Wei's mind. His overall strength was higher than the wolf's, but he couldn't fight it directly. He could only barely manage with his equipment. No, there was still hope. The wolf activated again. This time, all its muscles tensed up, and its dark purple eyes burned like ghostly flames, rushing forward with a roar. Speed and strength reached their peak. He couldn't resist head-on, and there was almost no way to dodge. Li Wei's pupils shrank. Relying on his last instinct, he raised his nearly shattered shield again to block in front of him. Now's the time, he roared with all his might. On the tower, Chen Yun was crying heavily but forced herself to steady her trembling arm, fully activating her combat vision. She locked onto the fast-moving giant figure, predicted its movements, and used all her strength to shoot her last arrow. The energy arrow turned into a black streak, piercing into the rear leg muscles of the wolf that was unable to dodge its attack. Poof! The arrow hit flesh. However, the giant wolf only trembled in its hind leg muscles, and its charge almost didn't slow down. It seemed that the pain was insignificant compared to its desire to tear apart the enemy in front of it. The shield finally reached its limit. Under the attack of the giant claw, the oak shield shattered completely, and the wooden armor protecting her body broke apart and flew away. Flesh and bones were exposed, and the white shoulder blades appeared in the air in flames. The bones were visible deep inside, and faint cracks could be seen on the surface of the bones. Ugh! The intense pain made Li Wei black out, and the strength in half of his body faded away. No! Chen Yun's scream was heart-wrenching. Just as the fog wolf pounced, Chen Yun shot an energy arrow, and a nearly imperceptible red shadow flashed out from the treehouse. It landed exactly on the wound pierced by the energy arrow. Gently touching, it injected something into the wolf's body, then quickly withdrew and landed on Li Wei's bloodied shoulder. It was the queen bee. At this moment, it was completely different from when it first appeared. Its body was about the length of an adult finger, with red and black stripes, and it had a smooth, jade-like texture, giving off a strange beauty. The wolf that had been touched by it suddenly stiffened. Howl! A scream of extreme pain burst from the wolf's mouth. This cry even drowned out all the sounds of battle, causing the mist to swirl. The wolf no longer paid attention to Li Wei nearby and rolled wildly on the ground. Opportunity. Li Wei supported his battle blade with his right arm, forcing himself to stay steady despite blood loss and severe pain. He clenched his teeth, his eyes filled with fierce determination to turn the tide of the battle. With his nearly useless left arm, he staggered toward the struggling giant beast. Using all his remaining strength, he stabbed and slashed wildly at the wolf's softer belly with his obsidian battle blade. 1 strike, 2 strikes, 3 blades. With a strong flow of wolf blood mixed with a heavy smell, it splashed all over him. The struggling of the mountain wolf became weaker and weaker, the howling gradually faded, and finally only faint, dying sounds remained. His dark purple pupils slowly lost focus. Li Wei was exhausted. The floral crown on his head was long gone. He knelt on one knee, leaning on his obsidian sword, gasping heavily. The once mighty leader of the fog wolves lay in a pool of blood, with no sign of life. At the top of the tower, Chen Yun scrambled down, falling and crawling toward him. She hurriedly tried to stop the bleeding with bandages, tears falling uncontrollably, but she couldn't say a word. Li Wei raised his blood-stained right hand, barely patting her hand with a weak voice that sounded strange and hoarse. We won. He looked up. The fog was still thick and heavy, covering everything around. The torches on the tower top were still burning. The wolf bodies and bee carcasses were tangled together, a mess, but no more evil wolves stood. The flames flickered on the bloodstains, making soft, crackling sounds. The fog was still dense, but the most intense wave of fog seemed to have temporarily receded. Don't worry about me for now. Go and heal the fog wolves that are still alive. He wanted to lift his right hand to pass the obsidian sword, but his arm was so heavy it only trembled slightly. Chen Yun knelt beside him, tears and dirt mixed on her face. When she heard his words, she sniffed hard, wiped her face with her arm, and reached out to grab the sword that had fallen near him. The blade was cold and heavy in her hands. She held it with both hands, supporting herself to stand up. In her ear, the queen bee gently landed on Li Wei's intact right shoulder, its tiny antennae repeatedly brushing his neck. A faint but clear worry and question passed through Li Wei's consciousness. Thought it's okay, he responded inwardly, forcing himself to gather a little strength. The fear only now felt like a cold tide, slowly washing over his limbs. The traps, burning bottles, poisoned arrows, and swarms of bees. Every step had been a gamble with all he had. But if only the fog wolf had charged 10 minutes earlier, if only the queen bee had been hit in the chaos. Any one of these what-ifs coming true would have had consequences he couldn't accept. The luck of victory felt colder than the wounds themselves. The Eternal Realm had once again taught him a lesson. Here, all promises and future gains are illusions. Only by truly turning each reward into real strength in his hands can he face every change. Chen Yun, holding her battle blade, staggered toward the still twitching evil wolf nearby and struck with her sword. A dull cutting sound rang out repeatedly. At the same time, wisps of grayish-white mist emerged from the bodies of the dead fog wolves, beginning to peel away and gather. Above the wolf corpses, several grayish-white objects about the size of coins condensed and then gently fell into the blood pool. Currency. Mist coins. Level. None. Special trait. Mist. Every creature that surrenders to the mist releases this item upon death, carrying a faint breath of the great fog. Description: the most widely circulated currency in the Eternal Realm. Li Wei's blurry vision caught the description appearing on his phone. So, the mist coins used in the shop transactions are made like this. Gold coins burst. He curled his lips, wanting to smile, but coughed up a mouthful of bloody saliva, wounded internally. On the large fog wolf corpse, the glow that emerged was even more noticeable. A crystal inside, seemingly rotating with faint star-like movement. Low-level soul fragment. A cool, damp blue gemstone that shimmered with a faint water element glow. Low-level water element fragment. and a magnificent treasure chest, quietly lying beside the wolf corpse, shining with a gentle silver-white metallic luster. Silver chest. All of these were purple quality. Really, it's worth it. No wonder they were pushed to the brink by that guy. Chen Yun finished off the last dying wolf, dragging her blood-stained blade back. She didn't even look at the shining loot, directly tossing away her blade. Thud. She knelt again beside Li Wei, hurriedly trying to cover the wound on his shoulder. Warm blood immediately gushed from her fingers. She trembled uncontrollably, tears falling heavily onto the broken wooden armor on Li Wei's chest. Li Wei, using all his strength, raised his relatively intact right hand and gently touched her cold hand. "Why are you crying?" His voice was weak, but he tried to sound a little relaxed. "I haven't yet grown old with you. How could I just leave you here?" Chen Yun listened, but instead of stopping, she cried even harder, her shoulders shaking violently. However, she firmly pressed her hand over his wound, while her other hand trembled as she took out the bandage. As she bandaged Li Wei, he used his other hand to open his phone. Eternal Realm 10086 Human Chat Group, currently 69,721 out of 100,000 members online. This number suddenly made his foggy mind clear for a moment. Almost 70,000 people? The attack tonight was so intense. How could only so few have died? He instinctively swiped the screen, quickly scrolling through the rapidly moving chat messages. Qin Jinshin, haha, it's over. 10 wolves. I already took down 3 from the start, Qi Qian. The barricades worked great. The wolves ran into them and got tangled up, Ji Yuan. Thanks to Brother Yang Teng for the warning. Otherwise, we'd be in real trouble. Tao Liqian found a wooden treasure chest and got a green weapon. Finally said goodbye to stone axes. Liao Ning got over 100 missed coins, so satisfying. Gao Yi. 15 wolves came here, a bit tough, but with good preparation, we managed to get through. The group was lively, filled with thanks for the warning and joy over leveling up and finding new gear. Most of the attacks involved 10 to 20 wolves. Thanks to early warning and good preparation, they avoided danger and even had a good harvest. Chen Yun raised her head, tears still on her face, her eyes full of confusion and a hint of unfairness. Why are there so many of us? Li Wei looked at the noisy group chat, feeling a deeper ache in his chest. 2 people. Shouldn't be so different, he muttered, a mix of doubt and faint suspicion swirling in his mind. Where did things go wrong? They had no answers at this moment. Let's go back to the shelter. Li Wei closed his eyes, exhaustion washing over him like a tide. Chen Yun clenched her teeth, temporarily stopping the bleeding. Then she bent down, helped Li Wei up. Fortunately, her years of training made it easy to lift a man. As they headed back to the house, in the shadowy corner of the wall, a mandrake plant quietly peeked out its head, seeing Li Wei covered in blood and being half-dragged. It was so frightened that it quickly covered its mouth with 2 leaves. Then it made anxious, high-pitched chirping sounds and jumped around on the ground. Chen Yun had no time to pay attention to it. She finally helped Li Wei onto the simple bed covered with hay and animal skins. Chen Yun quickly took off her relatively clean outer coat and covered Li Wei with it. Li Wei was already semi-conscious, his body hot, and he mumbled vaguely, "Done. Don't be afraid. I will protect you." Tears welled up in Chen Yun's eyes again. She wiped them harshly, then turned to boil some hot water to clean his wounds. When she looked back, she saw mandrake grass arrive at her feet without her noticing. Its tendril-like roots gently touched her leg. Chen Yun looked down. Mandrake grass, with its face tilted up, stretched out a tiny root and pointed at Li Wei. Then it pointed to its own root and made a cutting motion, repeating several times. It took her a while to understand. "Are you saying you want to give this to him to eat?" Chen Yun asked hoarsely. Mandrake grass shook itself vigorously, its leaves fluttering quickly. Chen Yun remembered the first time she saw it, being told it was a high-energy plant with unknown effects. Seeing Li Wei's pale face and colorless lips, she hesitated only for a moment. "Thank you," she whispered, carefully holding mandrake grass. She found a flat piece of wood and placed mandrake grass on it. It seemed to understand what was about to happen, trembling slightly, and used its 2 main leaves to cover its eyes tightly. Chen Yun took out a sharp-edged stone fragment, aimed at the tendril that was actively extending, and cut. Chirp! A completely different cry of pain came from mandrake grass, its tone distorted. At the cut root, a small amount of clear, shiny sap oozed out. The remaining tendril curled up, covering the wound. It stood up, limping toward the corner where a thorny flower pot was. Chen Yun quickly put down the stone fragment, carefully picked it up, and placed it back into the soft soil of the flower pot. Mandrake grass used its roots to dig through the soil a few times, then replanted itself. However, the whole plant looked wilted, and the once lively leaves drooped, losing their vibrant shine. Chen Yun dared not delay and returned to the bed. Li Wei is now completely unconscious, and his forehead feels extremely hot. She picks up a piece of the milky root, places it in a clean wooden bowl, and carefully crushes it. The root quickly turns into a small pool of pale, slightly bitter-smelling liquid. She adds a little warm water and stirs well. Then, she kneels by the bed, gently opens Li Wei's mouth with one hand, and holds the wooden bowl with the other. She carefully feeds the liquid into his mouth, little by little, along his cracked lips. Miraculously, soon after the medicine enters his stomach, the bleeding from his head, which was still slowly seeping through a simple bandage, gradually stops. His tightly furrowed brows relax a little, his breathing, which was rapid and weak, becomes longer and deeper, and he falls into a real sleep. Until now, the queen bee, who had been sitting at the head of the bed, flaps her wings and flies closer, gently touching Li Wei's forehead with her antennae. Then she turns and flies back to her hive. Chen Yun finally breathes a sigh of relief, slumps down exhaustedly onto the ground, leaning against the bed. After extreme tension and sadness, she is overwhelmed by fatigue. But she only sits for a few minutes. Outside, the battlefield has not yet been cleared. The fog coins, glowing fragments, and the silver treasure chest are still scattered in the pool of blood. Li Wei has fallen, and someone must do these things. She supports herself on the bed frame and slowly stands up. She glances at Li Wei, who is still frowning in sleep, then at the withered-looking mandurla plant in the corner. Then she turns around, leaves the shelter, and gently closes the door. Chen Yun stands at the door, taking a deep breath of the cold, foul air. She bends down, picks up a blood-stained grayish fog coin from the ground, wipes it, and puts it into her storage space. She walks toward the battlefield where ruins and harvests are intertwined, appearing very thin but also unusually straight. What is this? When Li Wei opens his eyes, the room is still dark. He instinctively reaches for his phone beside him to check today's weather. Location: Greenfield Forest. Weather: heavy fog, 16 to 23 degrees Celsius. Sunrise countdown: about 1 hour. It's not yet dawn. Usually, at this time, Chen Yun wakes up first and then nudges him awake. He instinctively props himself up and sits up. Wait, my shoulder isn't hurt anymore, is it? He paused for a moment, instinctively reaching with his right hand toward his left shoulder. Using the light from the screen, he turned over and got out of bed, walking to the fire pit to add a few branches. The fire gradually grew brighter, illuminating the room. On the workbench, last night's loot was piled up, and Chen Yun was sleeping soundly on the other side of the bed. The damaged wooden armor he wore had been taken off. Li Wei looked down carefully at his left shoulder. A rough-edged scab stretched from below his collarbone to the middle of his upper arm, like a fierce burn mark. But the edges of the scab had started to lift slightly, revealing pink new flesh underneath. Besides a slight itch and some tightness when moving, he felt almost no pain. He tried to make a fist and bend his arm. The movement was smooth, and his joints felt stable. What happened? He clearly remembered the force of that last strike. It was lucky that his bones weren't broken. The wound was deep, almost reaching the bone. Normally, he would expect a high fever, pus from the wound, or even confusion. He was prepared for infection. But in reality, he was standing here, and his wound was healing well. He called up his personal stats interface. His eyes fixed on the overall strength score, which was 30. Again, he was stunned. Compared to 18 before the fight, it was almost a big jump. He walked to the wall, using the firelight to look at himself and the reflection in the water basin. His figure seemed sharper, with clearer muscle lines, not the bulky muscles built in a gym, but the smooth contours shaped by jungle survival. His skin was covered with a layer of fat, giving him a full, powerful look. A small movement caught his attention. Chen Yun had woken up. She rubbed her eyes and sat up, her eyes bloodshot and her face showing lingering exhaustion. Li Wei? How? How are you? Her voice suddenly stopped, and her eyes widened. I'm fine. Li Wei turned around, fully revealing the injury on his left shoulder. Look, Chen Yun's breath caught. She reached out, her fingertips stopping just an inch from the scab. Last night, it was still. Could it be Mandela grass? Mandela grass? Li Wei had no memory of what happened after he lost consciousness. Last night, you had a fever. It came to you on its own, and I had to cut a root of it. I really couldn't help it, so I tried. I crushed it and fed it to you. Soon, your blood will stop, and you'll calm down. But this was too fast. She looked at the thorny flower pot in the corner. Usually, the two main leaves stand upright and look lively, but now they droop and look dull, clearly exhausted. Li Wei walked over, crouched by the flower pot, and gently touched the hanging leaves with his finger. Thanks. The leaves moved very slightly, as if responding. Thanks for your hard work last night. Li Wei returned to the fire pit and looked at the pile of missed coins on the work table. Chen Yun shook her head, her gaze on his shoulder. You worked hard too. Forget about that. It's all part of my job. Look at the spoils. I can't wait to see them. They sat by the fire, moving the pile of items on the work table into the light. The first thing he picked up was a crystal-like shard. Inside, it seemed to have gray-purple mist slowly swirling. Staring at it for a while, it gave a strange feeling of being watched by a cold gaze. Material, low-level soul fragment, purple, rank. First level, description, a condensed essence of a powerful creature's soul upon death. You can try to absorb it directly, which might grant some of its traits, but it also risks soul contamination. It can also be used for forging or enchanting, giving equipment unique soul qualities. Alchemists and soul artisans of the Herat sect desire this item greatly. Absorb it directly. Gain abilities. Chen Yun softly read the key part of the description, her brow furrowing. That's too dangerous, and it might not be the ability we want. Li Wei ran his finger over the cold surface of the crystal and looked up at Chen Yun. Use it for your bow? If it weren't for your shots last night, we would have been exhausted long ago. It's still your starting equipment. It needs an upgrade. Chen Yun's lips moved, but seeing Li Wei's unwavering gaze, she finally nodded. She wasn't a sentimental person. She understood the importance of priorities and knew Li Wei's decisions were for the best overall strength. She took her trusty longbow from her storage space. Li Wei held the soul fragment, silently preparing to use it. The crystal in his hand suddenly emitted a gray-purple glow. The swirling mist inside seemed to find an exit, transforming into a solid light stream that slowly flowed into the longbow held by Chen Yunping. The bow seemed to come alive, trembling slightly and producing a deep humming sound. The curve of the bow limbs appeared sharper, with faint dark patterns resembling wolf hair, and a faint pulse could be felt at the grip. The light lasted about 10 seconds before gradually fading away. The bow in Chen Yunping's hand had changed dramatically. It was now dark brown, with the ends of the limbs shaped like wolf teeth. The bowstring shimmered with a cold metallic shine, and the entire bow radiated a fierce aura. Exclusive weapon 100-pound wolf seat bow, blue, rank, level 1-1, attributes, overall strength 40, durability, 40-50. The original durability was reduced to 10 from battle damage, but soul infusion reshaped and strengthened the structure. Special ability, an energy arrow. Every 3 hours, the bow automatically condenses an energy arrow, which can be stored in a special quiver. The energy arrow lasts up to 3 days. Special ability, dominate the evil wolf. You can try to establish a soul contract with a willing or near-death wolf-like creature through this bow. Current contract slots, 0/1, quiver, 30/30 dominate the evil wolf. Chen Yunping gently touched the cold bow, feeling the power within, especially the last ability, dominate the evil wolf, which made her heartbeat slightly faster. The soul fragment's original owner determines the direction of its enhancement, Li Wei pondered thoughtfully. Chen Yunping nodded heavily, inspecting every detail of the new bow with great interest. The second item was a low-level water element fragment, entirely clear and light blue. Inside, It seemed to have flowing liquid-like luster, cool and smooth to the touch, and the surrounding air felt slightly more humid. Material: a low-level water element fragment, purple, rank, level 1, description, contains a small amount of pure water attribute energy. It is a key catalyst for some high-level crafts or special structures and is highly valuable. Similar to the previous shattered water element fragment, it contains a small amount of energy, a trace but pure. Should I give this to the bee queen? That last attack yesterday, without her, I would be dead, and she is in a critical stage of evolution. That's right, Chen Yun agreed without hesitation. Li Wei picked up the broken piece and walked over to the beehive next to the wall. As he approached, a wave of urgent and eager emotion came from inside the hive. He opened the lid, and the scene inside was much more bleak than usual. After last night's fight, only about 5,000 bees remained alive, and the number of worker bees had clearly decreased. Looking at the queen bee, which was different from the others, Li Wei checked her attributes. Previously, Li Wei had checked her stats. She was an ordinary bee, a level 0 creature. Now, animal blood bee queen, blue, rank, first level, overall strength, 30, health, 25/25, special trait, blood poison. The venom secreted by the bee has mutated, causing intense nerve pain and blood erosion. Those poisoned will suffer continuous pain before dying. Special trait blood, special trait reproduction. The only queen in the hive, she is the only one able to reproduce offspring. Description: a rare mutation that broke through the original life limits of her species, demonstrating the resilience of life. The evolution is not yet complete, but her potential is already evident. The latest batch of eggs laid shows a faint amber color with a hint of blood red. Li Wei gently placed the cold water element fragment in the center of the hive's platform. The queen immediately moved her body, clutching the fragment tightly with her front limbs. The buzzing of the hive seemed to become more regular and rhythmic. Finally, there was the grand silver treasure chest. It lay quietly, its surface shining like mercury, engraved with simple, ancient fog patterns. Treasure chest, silver storage box, purple, rank, first level, description, a reward for successfully resisting the surging fog. Can contain 2 to 4 items, with the highest purple quality. The great fog is never stingy. Come, you open it. Li Wei pushed the box toward Chen Yun. Your luck is always good. Chen Yun didn't refuse. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and held her breath to focus. Suddenly, she opened her eyes and stood up. Wait, I need to wash my hands, Li Wei chuckled. Chen Yun carefully washed her hands with clean water, then knelt in front of the treasure chest, clasped her hands together, and softly recited, Spirit of Heaven, Spirit of Earth, Supreme Lord, please show your power. Give me something truly useful. After finishing her prayer, she reached out and solemnly pressed her hand on the lock of the chest. Click, a gentle sound, and the lock clicked open. The lid slowly lifted, and in an instant, a bright purple light flashed and disappeared. Wow, it even has a special opening effect. Nice, this is really cool. 3 purple lights. Li Wei felt excited and warm inside. In his excitement, he reached out and hugged Chen Yun next to him, then playfully bit her cheek. The first item was a small, delicate model of a nest, woven from dry twigs and soft moss. It was only palm-sized but very lifelike, with detailed feathers inside that could be seen clearly. It was their first time seeing such a thing. Building, crow nest, purple, level, first, durability, 50/50, quantity, 0/30, special ability, messenger. When placed, it will automatically attract nearby crow groups to settle. The leader crow of the nest will establish a basic connection with the builder and can provide daily updates about the surrounding area, such as unusual activity, resource changes, or other animal movements. Special ability, nesting. Over time, the crow group can expand the nest on its own until it reaches the maximum size allowed by the space. Description: not all birds are simple-minded. Crows have impressive memories and communication skills. A fixed and safe nest is a tempting target for them. Information: Li Wei's eyes lit up. Previously, Chen Yun wanted to keep a crow cage for herself, but it was unstable and attracted bees, so she didn't rush. Now, they had a building that could be placed directly. Where should we put it? How about in the treetops? Do you think it will work? Great idea. Let's try it at dawn. The second item was a thin scroll made from a flexible beast hide. Book. Honey Medicine Paste Recipe. Purple. Rank. Level 1. Effect. After learning, you will understand how to extract medicinal properties from honey. Based on the effects of herbs, the paste can promote wound healing, relieve pain, and reduce infection risk. Introduction. A natural remedy from an ancient druid sect that has long vanished. It combines the gift of life with the land's blessings. Knowledge every survivor dreams of. Perfect. We'll have honey in the future, and we can find herbs, Chen Yun said happily. Now we have a way to treat injuries. Li Wei also relaxed, realizing this was truly valuable. Unlike the crow cage, which is popular but only useful in emergencies, people still prefer weapons, armor, and healing supplies when it really matters. And in large groups, the exclusive selling rights for the crow cage might not last long. The third item is an axe. Relic. 5 Virtues Logging Axe. Purple. Rank. Level 1. Attributes. Overall strength 40. Durability. 50-50. Special trait. Wood devouring. When chopping trees, this axe absorbs the life energy within, slowly restoring its own durability. Special trait. Gathering power. During continuous chopping, the axe gradually stores energy. This stored energy can be used for a more powerful strike next time, greatly increasing damage. When full, it can be released actively. Current energy, 0/100. Introduction. Can you imagine? This weapon is already dead, a combination of weapon and tool. It can repair itself and store power. Li Wei picked it up. It felt solid and very comfortable to hold. The gathering power trait is clearly useful in battle. Each of these 3 items perfectly targets their current weaknesses or needs. Is this really just a coincidence? Chen Yun looked at these 3 items and asked hesitantly. Li Wei looked again at the description in the silver treasure chest. Maybe this is what the Great Fog calls generosity, he said slowly. This realization added a new, complex feeling to both of them about this fog-covered world. He habitually checked the map to plan which direction to cut would more efficiently. His movements froze. The map was completely dark. It was not unexplored darkness, but the areas that had been previously explored and lit up, including the beehive flower sea and the frequently chopped trees. All known markers had disappeared. The entire map seemed to have been reset, leaving only a faint light beneath their shelter. Li Wei pushed open the shelter door. Outside, the torch had long burned out. Thick, grayish-white fog like a solid wall blocked the entrance. Visibility was less than 3 meters, and even the nearest watchtower was just a blurry outline. Farther away, the barricades, traps, and wolf carcasses were hidden in the rolling fog. He walked back to the fire pit and gently leaned his axe against the wall. We'll have to wait until morning. Sunlight seeped through thick cotton-like clouds, slowly dispersing the dense fog. When the view finally cleared, Li Wei and Chen Yun stood silently at the shelter entrance, staring at the unfamiliar scene before them. The fog had lifted, but the world seemed rearranged. The giant tree where their treehouse was located was noticeably taller than the surrounding trees before. But now, it looked ordinary, even a bit small. Looking around, all they saw were ancient, massive evergreen trees that needed several people to hug. Their canopies formed dark green umbrellas layered one over another, stretching into the gray sky. Their treehouse was hidden among them, inconspicuous. The forest had become deeper, denser, and more primitive. Did we get moved somewhere else? Li Wei said nothing, his gaze sweeping the ground. The blackened earth spread out in all directions, and a strange smell filled the air. It was a mix of burnt fur and the odd aroma of monster meat cooked through. The huge corpse of the fog wolf lay in a pool of blood, dark red blood soaking into the soil and hardening into a solid mass. The 2 newly cultivated fields, full of hope, had been trampled and ruined, with the soil turned over and the carefully built ridges flattened. The berry bushes that had been transplanted and started to grow new leaves now only had a few charred, curled branches, with a couple of withered yellow leaves hanging at the top, trembling sadly in the morning breeze. I don't know if I can survive this. Li Wei squatted down, gently touching the remaining leaf with his finger, his voice filled with regret. First, deal with these wolf carcasses. If we leave them too long, They will smell bad and attract other animals, especially since we don't know what the environment is like nearby. Go peel off the usable wolf skins. I'll dig a hole, and then we can handle the bones together. He then started communicating with the hive queen. Hive queen, send out the worker bees that can still fly. Don't go too far. Check around us and see what the situation is. Li Wei calmly assigned tasks. He had just finished processing the 4 wolf skins when more wolf skins appeared. Chen Yun nodded, took the obsidian blade Li Wei handed her. The blade had a few tiny chips, but it was still sharp enough to handle the fur. She walked toward the closest relatively intact wolf corpse. Li Wei picked up a stone shovel and headed to a flat area behind the shelter. He chose a spot, gripped the rough wooden handle with both hands, took a deep breath, and tentatively pushed the shovel into the soil. The feeling was completely wrong. He expected to need full strength and to encounter tangled roots, but nothing like that happened. The shovel seemed to cut into soft, compressed wood, smoothly sinking into the soil up to the shoulder of the shovel. He exerted a little more force, and a large chunk of damp earth was easily pried up and tossed aside. Li Wei paused, looked at his hand, then at the effortless result. He swung the shovel again, this time more naturally and smoothly. Shovel, pry, toss. His movements were fluid. The soil seemed to be parted by an invisible hand, and the digging was so fast that he was a little surprised. Every time he exerted force, he could clearly feel the muscles in his body harnessing strength far beyond before, with precise control. Is this what it feels like to have a total ability score of 30? It's not just about the numbers on the panel, but a full upgrade of body functions and efficiency. The work that used to make him gasp and take half a day now might only take 1 or 2 hours. He focused entirely on his work, no longer distracted. The shovel flew through the dirt, tossing it aside, and a neat rectangular pit was rapidly taking shape. Oh, Chen Yun continued working while speaking. This morning, I looked at the large group for a while. Many people thanked us for the early warning and asked about forming a faction, wondering when we would officially start. Li Wei snorted and kept digging in the dirt. From so far away, just staying alive is hard enough, and yet you still want to form alliances. Just go ahead and do it. Planning ahead isn't a bad thing. How many people are left in the big group now? About 71,500. That's fewer than before the attack. Chen Yun's voice was a bit quieter. This is after we gave the warning and everyone prepared. Exactly. Li Wei wasn't surprised. Then he teased, have you decided on a team name? Morningstar. What do you think? Chen Yun looked up, a little hopeful. Huh, that's a bit childish. Li Wei couldn't help but laugh. Come on, you say. Chen Yun pretended to be angry. Li Wei stroked his chin and joked, Protection Umbrella Company. How about that? It sounds very safe. Wow, you're so creative. Chen Yun stretched out the word playfully, but her eyes were full of smiles. They looked at each other and smiled, and the heavy work of cleaning seemed a bit easier. Let's get serious, Li Wei said, stopping his smile. First, add that person who sells Molotov cocktails. Someone who can make that kind of thing must be in chemistry or a related field. We should keep good relations with people like that. Okay, Chen Yun wiped her hands and opened the system interface to operate. Her friend request was quickly accepted. The other person's ID was Wang Weilan. His profile picture was of a young man with messy hair, dark circles under his eyes, and a shy look. Chen Yun. Hello, I'm Chen Yun. I bought your Molotov cocktail before. The reply was brief. Hello, Chen Yun. Did you make the Molotov cocktail yourself with the materials you had? How did you do it? This seemed to switch something on. His reply suddenly became very detailed. Wang Weilan. Yes. The main idea was to use the flammability of animal fat and the adhesive, fire-enhancing properties of certain resins. I tried several different resins. Sealing was a problem. I experimented with baked clay. But needing to manually ignite it before throwing was a flaw. If I could find substances similar to saltpeter or sulfur, maybe I could improve it. The text is filled with simple chemical formulas and descriptions of material handling, showing a strong passion for technology. Maybe because I haven't communicated with others for a long time, or because I touched on my professional field, I couldn't stop talking once I started. Chen Yun patiently finished reading and responded at the right moment. A genius idea and execution. I am currently forming a small resource sharing group, focused on sharing information and skills to solve survival problems together. I really need someone with your expertise to join. Are you willing? Wang Weilin responded quickly this time. Resource sharing and skill exchange? That's a good idea. A few people have approached me before, but it sounded more like forming factions, which I find pointless. You, Chen, are practical. I agreed to join. Chen Yun took the opportunity to create a new small group and added Wang Weilin, Qi Muyao, and Wang Xing. She had already discussed the group with Qi and Wang privately. Small chat groups use about the same energy as private messages, so they can be used often. The larger the group, the more energy it takes. A group of 100,000 is like the initial large regional chat, where one message costs very little energy. In the new Umbrella Resource Sharing Group, Chen Yun briefly introduced everyone. Then, she posted a formal message in the 10010 main group. Everyone, we are in a dangerous time, and no one can face it alone. I, Chen Yun, officially established the Umbrella Resource Sharing Group and declare the following. This group's purpose is resource sharing, mutual aid, and survival together. Anyone joining will share information, exchange skills, fight external dangers, and overcome survival challenges. There are 45 spots available, only for those who are practical, honest, and willing to work together. After sending the message, the reaction from the main group was not worth mentioning. Li Wei glanced at it, and then stopped paying attention, continuing to dig the pit. The specific selection of members and initial communication will be handled by Chen Yun. He clearly understood that in this place, any verbal promises and group names were meaningless. Only having a strong fist, abundant resources, and real strength mattered. Everything else was just illusions or decorations. After digging a big hole, Li Wei and Chen Yun began dragging over wolf carcasses, focusing on the main bones, skulls, limb bones, and spines. Their final harvest was 23 units of wolf pelts, green quality, some burned by fire, with holes or scorch marks, average appearance, needing further tanning and repairs before use. 40 units of wolf bones, all green quality, hard and lightweight. 1 wolf pelt, thicker and tougher wolf bones, and 4 long, prominent fangs, all purple quality materials. They pushed all the wolf carcasses into the deep pit, filled it with soil, and pressed it down. Maybe, as they decomposed underground, they could nourish this scorched land. After finishing, the sun had risen high, and most of the morning had passed. Both of them were covered in dirt and blood. Next, they needed to release the crow's nest. Li Wei looked up, scanning the tall, cloud-reaching trees around, his eyes shining with anticipation and thought. This is the spot. He was about 15 meters above the ground, standing on a thick, horizontal branch. At the fork, a side branch jutted diagonally, forming a stable triangle. It was a solid spot, with a relatively wide view, hidden among dense side branches and pine needles, making it hard to notice. He took out a small model of the crow's nest, about the size of his palm, and held it in his hand. Detected suitable location. Would you like to place the building? Crow's nest here? Yes. The delicate model seemed to come alive, gently lifting from his hand and hovering above the branch fork. Countless dry twigs and soft moss illusions emerged from inside the model, spreading visibly fast. In less than 2 minutes, a large, intricate bird's nest nearly 2 meters in diameter was securely settled among the branches. It wasn't just stacked randomly. It naturally fit the branches supporting it. Even the edges drooped with moss-like roots, as if it had grown there for many years. Then, Li Wei took out the crows that had been stored in the bird-catching baskets from his storage space. The black birds suddenly appeared in the air, instinctively flapping their wings in panic. Li Wei moved quickly, using a prepared fiberglass rope to loosely tie a knot around their legs, with the other end fixed to a branch inside the nest. He wasn't trying to trap them, just preventing them from flying away at the start. One by one, 20 crows were placed into their new, spacious home. At first, they nervously turned their heads and made short, caw sounds, but soon, a calming aura from the building itself seemed to work. Their flapping wings gradually calmed down, and they began to peck at the moss below with their beaks. Building, crow nest, purple, leader, none, number of residents, 20/30ths, group taming level, 60/100. Daily intelligence checks, 0/4. activated after the leader is produced. Starting taming level is already 60. No wonder this building is a product of the mist. Li Wei was a bit surprised. He thought it would take several days of feeding to make these wild birds accept this place. He took out some crushed dried meat from his pocket, specially prepared today. He spread his palm and carefully placed the small bits of meat on several flat spots at the edge of the nest. The nearest crows hesitated, tilting their heads, their shiny black eyes cautiously observing him. Finally, one slightly bolder crow stretched out its neck, quickly pecked a piece, and swallowed it. Taming level of the crow 5. More crows joined in pecking at the food. Li Wei patiently waited for them to finish eating, then carefully untied the knots one by one. The fiberglass ropes slipped off, and the freed crows flapped their wings but did not fly away immediately. They just paced around the edge of the nest, groomed their feathers, or curiously looked at the forest canopy below, which they had never seen before. They had already made this place their home. Li Wei sighed in relief and began to carefully climb down. It's easier to go up than to come down. When his feet finally stepped on the thick layer of fallen leaves, he felt a bit of sweat on his palms. Losing the bird-catching basket is fine, he thought, the last bit of regret fading away. Back at the shelter, he closed his eyes and sank his consciousness into the connection with the hive. Have the scout bees returned? How is the surrounding area? You're back. The queen's mind message arrived. There are few flowers nearby, so collecting nectar is hard. In the north, there are many red fruits. Are those red berries? Are they ripe? Li Wei's spirits lifted. Good, it's a find. Keep exploring. You can fly a bit farther, but be careful and stay safe. I will make sure the children are careful, she replied. Li Wei turned around and called to Chen Yun, who was cleaning the leftover wolf hide. Honey, it seems the bee colony found a large patch of berries to the north, not far away. Shall we go see? Chen Yun's eyes lit up immediately, and she put away her tools. Let's go. They took their weapons and containers, following a worker bee designated as their guide, heading deeper into the forest. The light quickly dimmed. Towering ancient trees formed a dense, impenetrable canopy, filtering most of the sunlight into a dark green gloom. The air was cool and moist, filled with the smell of damp soil and a faint, indescribable scent of plants. Underfoot was a soft layer of fallen leaves, almost silent when stepped on. This place seemed like a different world from the forest edge. Huge tree trunks were covered with fuzzy dark green moss and patches of lichen. Low-growing ferns with feather-like leaves spread out nearby. Various unknown shrubs grew sparsely among them, all inedible plants. Li Wei, look at this. Chen Yun stopped beside a large, decayed tree partly buried in leaves. On the dead wood, a cluster of mushrooms was growing. They looked different from ordinary fungi, with semi-transparent caps that curled slightly at the edges, glowing faintly blue. Even in the dim forest light, their glow was clear and dreamlike. Plant, glow mushroom, green. Level. First, description, a special fungus that grows in pure, damp environments. Its flesh contains nerve-numbing and blood-clotting toxins. It can be used to make medicines if processed properly. Eating it directly is dangerous. It's poisonous, but usable. I'll try it once I learn how to make honey ointment. Li Wei crouched down to examine it carefully, not rushing to pick any. He thought for a moment, then pressed his palm against the thick, waist-high dead wood. With a thought, he stored the entire piece, along with the glowing mushrooms growing on it, into his storage space. Try planting one back home. Maybe it will grow. Further ahead, Chen Yun suddenly grabbed his arm, signaling him to look at the ground.